I've seen evidence of species developing alterations and mutations based off of their environment over time, over short
That's
periods
a
of
non
time and a long period of time.
that's a non sequitur. I mean, I can dispute what you just said, but even if I grant it, that's a non sequitur. Do you know what I mean by that?
I don't understand why you would
They
say
would
that.
disprove God.
Do you know what a non sequitur is?
Well, you asked me why would I
Do
believe in
you
evolution.
know what a non sequitur is?
No, explain to me what you mean by non sequitur.
You have no idea what a non sequitur is.
I'm asking you to explain it like a grown up.
I know. Okay, fuck you.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
explain it like
just
a grown
said
up. Okay, okay, all right. Excuse my French. I shouldn't talk that way. Yeah,
no.
you're gonna act like a little prick. I'm gonna treat you like one. Okay. I asked you a question. I said, do you know what a non sequitur is? And you respond to me like you're an arrogant little punk, and you're in your 40s.
Yeah, he just said no.
You're gonna be rude to me. You're gonna be snide. Now, how many times did I have to ask you? Do you know what a non sequitur is? Right? And you ignore what I'm saying. And then I repeat it again and I say it loudly and slowly. Do you know what a non sequitur is? You come back snide and arrogant?
Yeah, he got just said no. I don't get this. Yeah.
No,
It's their ego.
look, I'm going to give you one more chance. But you get one more chance if you're going to apologize being a snide jerk. Are you going to apologize? You got 5 seconds. Okay, goodbye. You're back on. Yeah, bye. You're done. So his evidentiary support is that because he thinks evolution happened. Well, evolution doesn't get you to there's no God. Evolution doesn't logically necessitate that there's no God. It might be the fertile ideological framework from which you conclude or infer that you are in no need of God, and then conclude that there is no God. But evolution per se doesn't logically necessitate there's no God. See, I gave the guy a chance to apologize, and he wouldn't do it because he's a snide punk.
Yeah, Darth, I just can't deal with that. And Darth, it's always great to learn from
No,
you.
I'm not dealing with it anymore. I'm not putting up with this. Okay.
Darth, what's the like? I know you obviously reject evolution. Me too. But like,
Yeah, you
what's the
are.
best argument?
Hold on. You are too close to your mic source.
You're too close. Oh, sorry. Am I loud? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's loud, but it's too overly modulated.
I said, what's the strongest like evidence line that you've come across against evolutionists?
Oh well, the only one that I do need is God's revelation of
So no, I'm
Himself in
saying for
creation.
them, like the ones that they bring up.
They have none. Okay, evolution is a crap sandwich pretending to be roast beef and cheese. Okay, but it's the only crap sandwich that they have, so they build it up. It's like an ugly girl puts on a lot of makeup, and wow, she looks a lot better with that makeup. But when you see her with that makeup, it's egads.
Except
Okay,
we have
the
vestigial limbs.
Do you think it's a
okay, all right, Jib, listen to me. Just that statement alone tells me that you are ignorant. Vestigiality is something that is an interpretation after you believe in evolution. Do you believe that the appendix is vestigial?
I don't know if the appendix is, but I know the tailbone is. Same thing with molars.
It's not, dude.
No, sir. Okay, sir. Listen, you are speaking. You don't know that. Okay. Now,
Well, no, I do, because it is.
no.
Same
Okay,
with
okay.
the leg bones in whales.
Jib.
Bruh.
Listen to me. Because you are regurgitating the evolution dogma doesn't mean that you know it. Now, I don't mind you asserting what you think you know, but I do mind that you're smug and arrogant about it. Now, what leg bones in whales?
You see, I
And
can
by the
look it
way,
up again.
listen to me carefully. Do you think I haven't studied this?
I never said
Are
you
you
didn't.
are you talking about that there is a small bone within the um,
Pelvis.
the pelvis area, if you will, that is alleged to be a remnant of a pelvis? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, what demonstrates that?
I mean, that's kind of like an odd question. You could just look at the
Sir,
fossils, look at the
sir,
bones.
listen to me. Do you know that some animals, because of their anatomy and physiology, don't get erections like humans do?
That's a bummer.
That they have like a
Sucks for
bone.
those guys.
Yeah. Listen, if you're going to be a little teenage punk, I'm going to server meet your dumbass.
I was joking, casually.
I don't. Okay, no. But the point is this: the bone that is in question has ligaments attached to it, and it's a part of the reproductive system in whales. It has been interpreted by evolutionists as being the remnants of some type of pelvic structure. But interpretation is not the same thing as sense data. So when you say there's the remnants of legs, first of all, you're not even citing what they actually claim. Nobody claims that this bone is the remnants of legs. What they do claim is that it's a remnant of a pelvic region. So do you realize how you've made that mistake?
No.
Oh, someone else responded to that. 1 second.
Do
I'm
you
just double checking if
realize?
it was leg or pelvic.
Okay, you're done. Okay, yeah. Don't you love these arrogant little teenagers? They shoot their mouths off and they don't know what they're talking about. They want to talk about vestigial limbs. You see, this is what is so funny. They think that these extrapolations, these conjectures, these evolutionary conjectures, they think that these are discoveries, but they're not. They cannot distinguish between the sense datum and the extrapolation. Yes, there is a bone in the hind section that we know anatomically is connected and related to the reproductive organs, okay? But this guy thinks is because scientists told him, well, you see, this is a remnant of a pelvic region. He can't distinguish between what is extrapolative and what is sense datum. But they know it all, don't they? They've watched those documentaries on YouTube. They watch those documentaries on Discovery Channel. They know it all, don't they?
The tailbone isn't even a scientific term. It's called the coccyx, and it has functions.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, Jib. Does the coccyx, and if you're a smartass with me again without warning, I will permanently server mute you and I'll remove you from the room. Does the coccyx in human beings have a function?
Is the coccyx the tailbone?
Yes.
I'll have to look it up. But vestigial limbs, they just don't have their original function. They could still serve another function.
Jib. Do you think repeating to me evolutionary dogma is the same thing as fact? Now, you told me about vestigial parts. Now, do you understand that when they say the coccyx is vestigial, they're only saying it's vestigial not because the sense datum demonstrates it, is because they are starting with an evolutionary belief system that human beings are the descendants of other creatures that once had a tail. Okay? And so when they look at the coccyx or the tailbone, they conclude, because they already believe in evolution, that it's a remnant, it's vestigial. Okay? So this is not evidence of evolution. This is circular reasoning. You first have to believe in evolution first, in order then to say that the coccyx is vestigial. Do you understand what I just said to you?
I do, but I have to disagree.
All right, you're an idiot. Okay, you're
Yeah,
done.
and you're a fat ass, old man.
Yeah, you're a moron. Yeah.
How is he a moron?
Yeah, if
he was.
I'll tell you why. Is because they've got the cart before the horse. Okay.
No,
Certain
that's not
body
how it
part.
works.
I'm trying to explain to you. If you want to have a discussion and a debate on it, I'll take you on. But if you're rude and interruptive, I will server mute your dumb ass. Now, the claim of vestigiality for certain anatomical features in humans and other creatures is only done so from the presupposition that a Darwinian gradualistic evolution is true. Okay, do you understand that so far?
Yes, but you're wrong.
I'm wrong about what?
They don't put evolution before the vestigial. The vestigial points towards evolution.
Wrong.
We look at the data. No, can I finish? Can I finish?
Wrong.
Can I finish?
Give me
can
a.
I finish?
Give me a.
Can I finish?
Give me. I'm going to kick you from the room.
So you're not going to let me finish.
Do you want? Okay, listen to me carefully. Have you ever seen those police videos where the police officer says, "Put down the gun"? Put down the gun. Have you ever seen those videos?
Yeah, I'm not holding a gun.
Right. And what happens when somebody doesn't put down the gun? What happens to them?
They're not holding? They get shot because cops are assholes.
Okay. All right. Goodbye, asshole.
Oh.
What's the third eyelid for?
Too many chances.
Say it again, bro.
Yeah, what's the third eyelid for? What's the function of that?
Okay. Well, first of all, we don't have to know what the function of everything is, but it's extremely common that people who have drunk the dogma, the Kool-Aid of evolution, that whenever they come across a body part that they don't know the function of, they claim, well, this is vestigial. Well, they have been embarrassed in time and time again, like the appendix or the tonsils, okay? We now know that the tonsils, we know that the appendix are all involved in the immune system, especially in utero when it comes to the appendix. The appendix also serves the function of a reservoir of replenishing the intestines or the gut with beneficial bacteria so that it prevents or forestalls the replication of pathogenic bacteria. So the point is that when people say people want to say, well, the vestigial organs point to evolution. No, it's actually the reverse. When somebody says something like this, they don't know what they're talking about. The coccyx actually has several functions. The reason why they're saying that it's vestigial, right, is because they either want to ignore or diminish its functionality and just saying, well, since they already believe in evolution, it's just the remnants of a tail because we have a common ancestry with the apes. Okay? Now, if you don't presuppose a evolution, then on what grounds do you say that the coccyx is vestigial? What grounds? You see, the people who think they know evolution well are people who understand it the least.
Well, people are going to say that the coccyx is probably not functional because when you remove it, there doesn't seem to be any inhibition in perineal.
That's categorically false. Oh, it's right, you. So fuck you.
Oh yeah, it's Jeff.
Guess what? I have told you before to stay out of my room. If you come into my room again, I'm going to ask the founders to ban you from the server.
That wasn't very Christian.
Not Christian.
Yeah, you guys don't know him. Yeah, you guys.
All right, I'm gonna lodge another formal complaint against him.
Yeah, me too.
I'll be with you guys in a minute. I've had it with this guy.
Just listening
Honestly,
in.
I'm just gonna.
I was gonna say just
Honestly, I'm
listening.
just gonna.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, actually, I'm gonna shut up now. Never mind.
Oh, okay. I'll say from kind of like undecided on a lot of these issues. Just hearing the anti or the pro evolution side, they don't seem to evolve on their own end. It's just one dude over and over again, just doing exactly the same thing. You think they would at least try to evolve their tactics?
All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back here. Yeah, I apologize for swearing. I shouldn't do that. But I'm sick and tired of these people who purposely join rooms to irritate me when they know that they've engaged in harassing and stalking behavior. He's been told before. Okay. If he does it again, he's going to get banned from the server. Okay. And the founders don't want me to leave the server. Okay. I'm not going to put up with these people joining. Yeah, I am sure about that. Okay. Now we're gonna continue. So the reason why they say certain body parts are vestigial is because they're operating from an a priori assumption that evolution is true. And therefore, any parts that they have trouble explaining or they don't know what its function is, they claim that it's vestigial. Okay? But people who are ignorant of evolutionary theory have the cart before the horse. They think that the appeal to vestigiality is a precursor to evolution, when in fact you have to start with an a priori assumption of evolution in order to claim that something is vestigial.
There's so much that you have wrong there. It's just
I already look, sir. I already told you you're not welcome to speak because you were obnoxious and you were rude. Are you going to apologize? I'm talking about earlier. Are you going to apologize?
Sure, I'm sorry.
No one's going to apologize to you, you fucking piece of shit. Shut the fuck up.
Okay.
So I'm reading your study.
Hey, I just did.
I didn't hear you.
He did say sorry.
I'm a big black.
I did.
He said, "Sure, sorry."
Hey, well, if you become rude again, I'm going to kick you. So
Can I ask a question? Sorry,
yeah.
My question was, how was I rude last time? Because you asked me a question, I was answering.
I'm not doing this, sir. Okay, I'm not doing this teenage antics. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, so how you are wrong is because what we're looking at, the data that we get, ends up pointing towards evolution, not the other way around. Because
is it an implication? Do you know the difference between an implication? No, you may not. Do you know the difference between an implication and an inference?
I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about.
Sir. Do you know the You know what? You know what? I'm not playing this little teenage game. I asked you a question. Do you know the difference between it?
I'm older than you.
Then don't. No, you're not. Are you older than 61? You're older than 61.
65. I'm 65.
Good. Then what? Yeah, I don't believe you. So, but then why are you acting like a teenager now? Do you believe in Do you believe in evolution?
I don't believe in it. I know that it's true.
Okay, what is your single most powerful evidentiary support for evolution or gradualism?
That's not how science works. There's not just one single thing.
That's a dodge of the question. Strike one. What is your single most important piece of evidence for Darwinian gradualism?
The change in allele frequencies over time.
No, sir. Okay, see, now you're bullshitting, okay? That is simply a definition, that is simply a biological definition of evolution defined merely as biological change. So you're incompetent. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do.
A change in allele, no, you don't, okay? I'm going to show you right now. No, sir, listen to me. Listen, you better be very careful from here on out because I'm going to have an itchy trigger finger to mute and kick you. When you say a change in allele frequencies, all you're simply just giving me is a watered down definition of evolution, meaning a change in allele frequencies just simply amounts in layman's terms to biological change.
That's evolution.
No, sir. No, sir. We're talking about Darwinian evolution, sir.
A change of allele frequencies over
Sir,
time.
listen, sir. You are committing the fallacy of equivocation. We are not talking about biological change. If you mean the word evolution just simply means change, that's perfectly commensurate with creationism and intelligent design. We are not talking about mere change in biological reproduction, meaning a change in allele frequencies. What we're talking about is macroevolution or Darwinian evolution. That is the topic. Didn't you get the memo?
Yes, I heard. But you asked me for one specific. Can I finish? Can I finish?
No, you may not. No, you may not. I asked you to give me. No, because I. Okay. All right. Goodbye. Okay.
Yeah. This is
so
why
what he wants. Hold on. This is the little game that they want to play. They want to come in like they're white knights defending Darwinian evolution, but then when you ask them to defend it, they give a completely watered down definition that nobody disagrees with. We're not using the word evolution simply to mean change, okay, or that is more specifically defined as a change in allele frequencies over time, okay. Who disputes that there's change in biological reproduction? Nobody disputes that. But that is not evolution with a capital E. We're talking about evolution in that there is a gradualistic development, okay? That there's a universal common ancestry, okay? Now, we're asking, what is the support for that? And rather than give the support for it, he's just giving a definition of a watered down definition of evolution simply to mean biological change. Who in their right mind is disputing that there's biological variation in reproduction? Who is disputing that?
Welcome to evolution.
Who is he arguing against? Okay.
That's literally what evolution is. Evolution is literally changes in allele frequency over time.
You are not welcome here. Please leave.
Why?
Okay, you are a liar, and you're also a liar about what's between your legs. You're not welcome here.
That's not the issue here.
I have made myself clear to you on countless occasions, dozens and dozens of occasions, when I'm in a room, you are not welcome because your history of lying about things in science. Do you understand? Do you understand? I will say it one more time. Do you understand?
What is your best evidence?
Everyone be quiet. Do you understand you are not welcome here?
I don't care. What is your best evidence?
Okay, all right.
Who's talking?
Yeah, can I say something, Darth, really quick to let everybody know? Brenda has a history.
Brendan is a transformer.
Oh yeah,
and also a well-known troll going back to Google Plus days, which isn't that long ago. Brendan is a known troll, and he's also a pathological liar. Okay, he's not only a troll, but he's a liar. This is a guy who has repeatedly said, who has repeatedly stated that scientists do not presuppose the uniformity of nature. Now, this is an outright lie. Brendan could not possibly be this stupid, nor do I think Brendan is this stupid, right? He knows that whatever room that I go in, that if I have any moderation powers, that he is not welcome. He just comes in order to taunt, okay? And this is what you get. This is what a weirdo he is. You know, when somebody who has mod powers has made it abundantly clear to me, I'm not welcome in their rooms. I don't join their rooms. I don't taunt people like this. But this weirdo, this transformer does.
Yeah, sycophantic stalking.
Yeah, Well, isn't it any wonder why he's an atheist? Because he's in denial about how God made this world. He made them male and female. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Okay. So the bottom line is this, is your average person who has been brainwashed into the theory of Darwinian evolution, or even the neo-Darwinian synthesis, simply doesn't understand the difference between sense datum and evolutionary propaganda, or extrapolations, or evolutionary conjectures. They don't understand how certain evolutionary extrapolations and conjectures are in fact entirely conjectural. They think that is sense datum, and it is not. How many people believe that the fossil record is a great example of gradualism when in fact it is not? It is categorically not an example of gradualism. That's why some top paleontologists not only admit this, they have devised an alternative explanation for evolution to evade the fact that the fossil record doesn't exemplify gradualism, right? But most of these people are ignorant. They think they understand evolution and they don't. Just like that schmuck who said evolution is a change in allele frequencies. We're not talking about a watered down definition of evolution.
If it's not gradualism, I'm sorry, I have a question. If it's not gradualism, then with evolution, then what is it?
Well, my position is that Darwin's theory of evolution, or even the neo-Darwin synthesis, that doesn't take into account gradualism is false. But the vast majority of people that I'm going to deal with or run into are gradualists, and they know little to nothing about paleontology. Not that I'm an expert in paleontology, but I know enough to know that what they think is a fact is not a fact. Gradualism is not found in the fossil record. It's
so
not
what is
there.
What is it? So like so I have a question for you. Because again, I understand what you're saying there is like, or you're in doubt of evolution, and so
no. I'm not in doubt. I say it's categorically false.
It's false that it's gradual. So when I went to the Natural History Museum in Washington D.C. A couple years ago, and I went to the evolution exhibit, and so I've never personally seen any paleontology. I'm not a paleontologist or a scientist or anything like that. I haven't personally seen any evidence of evolution. And when I went to the Natural History Museum and saw the evolution exhibit, they had just a wall of skulls that gradually over time, and then like they had the years, and they had all these skulls, right? Like real fossils.
You're not understanding.
They gradually went from being a different species,
and then that which led up to
us.
What skulls are you referring to?
All of the fossils of our ancestors, of the evolutionary humans, like the Homo erectus.
I know what you're talking about.
Sir, what you're talking about, what you're talking about is this conjectural arrangement of succession. Now, I asked a PhD in evolutionary biology 10 years ago. I should have written down his name. I said, what is the empirical methodology? See, you're an actual case exhibit here. You're looking at a depiction, a sequential depiction, and you think that this is sense datum. What you don't realize is that the arrangement is not sense datum. The arrangement is an artificial construct, and it's conjectural. The actual fossilized remains is sense datum. The arrangement is not. Were you aware of that before I move on? Listen to me. If you ignore, listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. If you ignore any question that I put up to you, right? Or if you trivialize it, you're free to disagree. But if you ignore or trivialize any question that I put to you, you're done. Okay. Now, do you understand that the sequential arrangement that you saw is conjectural?
So, is it conjectural or is it just chronological?
Listen, okay, I take it English is your first language. Do you understand that the sequential arrangement of the mineralized bones, the sequential arrangement is conjectural? Do you understand that?
I understand what you're saying. As in, you think
Okay,
that
goodbye. Okay, goodbye. You're done. I told you if you trivialize what I'm saying to you, you can respectfully disagree with it. But when you say, I understand that you're saying that, that is a sleazy response. Okay? I didn't ask you if you understood. Shut up. No, the point is this. I asked him, do you understand that what you are looking at, that the sequential arrangement of these mineralized bones is conjectural? Do you understand that? Do you accept that as true? The answer is either yes, I understand and accept that as true, or no, I don't. Okay? Now, what he then said, because he didn't want to honestly answer the question, he says, I understand that you believe that, or you're saying that. That is a throwaway statement for the purposes of being deceptive and evasive. Okay? Now, we're going to give him one more chance to show you I'm not a hard-hearted guy. Now, do you understand that the arrangement of these mineralized fossils, that the arrangement is conjectural?
No.
Okay. Now, what is the empirical methodology to show an ancestor-descendant relationship between each of the mineralized bones?
They just put them in chronological order.
Sir, the chronological order is conjectural. What is the empirical method? Notice how you didn't answer the question. What is the empirical methodology that demonstrates that the chronological order is not conjectural?
I don't know.
See, then you have been duped by these evolutionary assumptions. You went into this museum of natural history and say, wow, this is a prestigious museum. They wouldn't put up stuff that was just make-believe. These are scientists. But the arrangement of the skulls is make-believe. Okay? Because guess what? There is no empirical methodology to show an ancestor-descendant relationship. The way they do it is because they have first adopted that evolution is true. They believe that evolution is true. Therefore, if we have a variety of skulls that change over time, well, we'll just put them in a particular sequence because change over time, evolution is true. This is begging the question. Okay? But you see, laymen such as yourself aren't equipped to differentiate between what is sense datum, that we have mineralized bones, and the sequential order. There is no empirical methodology to show an ancestor-descendant relationship. The ancestor-descendant relationship is one of conjecture because they've adopted the theory of evolution. Okay?
I have a question.
Now,
Now,
hold your question. Now, do you believe that the fossil record as a whole exemplifies gradualism?
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Can you say that one more time and then I'll answer?
Does the fossil record demonstrate Darwinian gradualism?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to read to you a quote from one of the world's top microbiologists and experts on evolutionary biology, okay? Now, I'm going to read this quote, and I'm going to juxtapose this quote with what you just said. You believe that the fossil record is an excellent exemplar of gradualism, okay? Now,
yes.
I'm going to show you how a top expert in the field of evolution completely contradicts what you're saying, okay?
What?
Listen carefully. This is from Dr. Eugene Koonin from The Logic of Chance, The Nature and Origin of Biological Evolution. Dr. Eugene Koonin is a scholar of world renown when it comes to evolutionary biology and microbiology. The number of citation, Dr. Eugene Koonin, the number of his scholarly citations is off the chart. There are a few peers that hold the same level of scholarly citations that he does, okay? Now, he's not a creationist, okay? He's a staunch evolutionist. Are you ready for this? The general lack of transitional forms between species in the fossil record is a constant theme in evolutionary biology. Darwin recognized this problem. What's the problem? The problem is the lack of transitional forms between species in the fossil record. Darwin recognized this problem and traditionally interpreted this problem, along with paleontologists in the Darwinian tradition, as a reflection of the dramatic incompleteness of the record. However, extensive accumulation of paleontological data in the 20th century helped very little, if at all. So a different perspective emerged. Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge collected extensive evidence indicating that the history of the great majority of animal species, as reflected in the fossil record, represents mostly stasis. That is, a virtual lack of change. Stasis is punctuated by sudden disappearance of species, followed by a rapid replacement of new species. The implication, which he should have written the inference, okay? The reason why he says implication is because he's drunk the Kool-Aid of evolution. The implication of this pervasive pattern is that speciation is a rapid process compared to the duration of stasis. Now, when he says the pervasive pattern, okay, what is the pervasive pattern that he refers to, sir?
I don't know. I don't know. What is he referring to?
I'll read it to you again. I'll read it to you again. Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge, okay, collected extensive evidence indicating that the history of the great majority of animal species, as reflected in the fossil record, represent mostly stasis. That is, a virtual lack of change. Okay? Now.
Oh, okay.
Now, so when Dr. Eugene Koonin says this pervasive pattern, what is the pervasive pattern that he's referring to here?
Evolution. You have to tell me. I do not know.
No, I will read it to you again. Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge collected extensive evidence indicating that the history of the great majority of animal species, as reflected in the fossil record, represent mostly stasis. The opposite of stasis would be gradualism, okay? Stasis versus gradualism, okay? So he goes on, he says, the implication of this pervasive pattern. What is the pervasive pattern, sir?
Please tell me what it is. I do not know.
I just read it to you. I'll read it again.
Why are you asking me something you just told me?
Again, because you're smart, right? You know evolution. You went to the Natural History Museum. You saw this wonderful depiction of these little skulls getting bigger and bigger in the evolution, right? You saw an exhibit. Oh, yeah, you saw an exhibit. Okay. Oh, well, that must sell it because they had an exhibit.
Fossils. I wanted to see the actual fossils, and I've personally seen
the evidence
of evolution.
You're still not getting this, okay? You think because you see an exhibit that therefore the exhibit represents a fact. Okay?
Yes, I saw firsthand. I'm a firsthand witness of the evidence.
Here's the problem, okay? Because you're so arrogant and prideful, I'm reading to you something right here that you are not even comprehending at all. I read it to you several times. I will read it again.
Please don't.
I'm asking you, okay.
Goodbye.
Please don't. I ask you what the pervasive pattern refers to. What is the pervasive pattern? I read you the quotation over and over and over again. Okay? And I ask you, what is the pervasive pattern? And you couldn't answer the question. You think because you see an exhibit in a museum, therefore this sequential arrangement is a fact. It is not. The bones are a fact, but the arrangement of the bones and the claim that there's an ancestor-descendant relationship is not a fact. You cannot distinguish or differentiate between the sense datum, the bones, and the claim of a sequential arrangement in terms of an ancestor-descendant relationship. This is how you have been duped by the propaganda of evolution. The point of the quote is to show you that there is a pervasive pattern within the entire fossil record acknowledged by Stephen Jay Gould, Niles Eldredge, and Dr. Eugene Koonin, and many other paleontologists. They all recognize this pervasive pattern. What is this pervasive pattern? Is that the fossil record does not demonstrate Darwinian gradualism. So another perspective had to be brought up in order to salvage the crashing and burning of the theory of evolution called punctuated equilibrium. In other words, evolution happened in such rapid bursts. In other words, these mutations happened so fast, so quickly, that the transitional forms happened so quickly that they left behind no telltale signs in the fossil record. The punctuated equilibrium is just simply the dog ate my homework. Punctuated equilibrium is an ad hoc maneuver in order to sidestep the pervasive pattern that gradualism is not there in the fossil record. But we've got this guy going, oh, I went to the Museum of Natural History. I saw all these animal skeletons put in sequential form. Oh, well, then I guess that settles it because somebody put them in an order. Therefore, that automatically demonstrates an ancestor-descendant relationship. No, it does not. This is how gullible people are.
I've been to that exhibit. He missed the point of it completely. Like in the exhibit, they show what they're showing is the teeth, and they match the teeth to the location that the skulls were found, and then say the food source at the location that this animal died.
What people don't understand, the fact that there are similarities in the skeletal remains, it's a non sequitur that there's a ancestor-descendant relationship. Now, if you already have drunk the Kool-Aid, okay, here's what people don't understand. What they claim is evidence of evolution is not evidence of evolution. What it is they have an a priori assumption that evolution is true, and then they impose upon the sense datum an evolutionary arrangement or evolutionary description, and the extrapolation they call as evidence when it's not evidence. It is an extrapolation. Extrapolation is not evidence.
Yeah,
okay?
I like the way you said
Does everybody understand that extrapolation, conjecture, is not evidence? But because people aren't interested in listening to the counter arguments against evolution, we're not like we're talking about flat earthers here, because they have a sequential arrangement of these smaller skeletons of these ape-like creatures going all the way up to human beings. Oh, well, I guess that settles it, right? Because certain scientists put it in a particular sequential order. Well, I guess that proves it, right? No, it doesn't. This is how gullible people are. Okay?
Yeah,
I asked a PhD in evolution 10 to 12 years ago. I said, what is the empirical methodology to show an ancestor-descendant relationship between any mineralized bones? And he started to laugh. I said, why are you laughing? He says, because you know the answer, or else you wouldn't have asked the question. I said, well, why didn't you tell the audience? He says, there is none. Homology is a theoretical conjectural construct that is imposed or projected onto these fossilized remains. So the arrangement is not evidence, but it is taken as evidence. This is how gullible this guy is, okay? It's sad that people are so gullible that they don't know what is evidence and what is conjecture. It's like, for example, people think that the Big Bang cosmology is a discovery. It's not a discovery. It's an extrapolation from a thought experiment.
So can I read a quote from a paper about Homo erectus?
Before you do, are you pro evolution?
No, I'm against. I'm reading a quote from evolutionists that show how Homo erectus is actually not even a transitional species. It's like we lived with them.
The issue is not that there aren't a few what they refer to as transitional forms. The issue is gradualism is not evident within the fossil record, even within anthropological remains. It's just not there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's laughable because the skeletal remains that we see in these museums that are put in sequential order are entirely consistent with creationism and intelligent design. But they think because they're put in a sequential order, oh, well, then that's a fact, right? No, it's not.
It's always great to have you here, Darth, to explain this
You
stuff.
guys know? Do you guys know that it wasn't that long ago where they took certain Aboriginal types and they put them in circuses and they even put them in zoos? Okay, it wasn't that long ago. These were Aboriginal types who were not, they were dirty, they were hairy, they were uncultured. I'll say they were uncivilized in the modern sense. And because of evolutionary assumptions, they put some of these people in zoo exhibits. And this wasn't that long ago. Gee, how did that happen? Because they bought into evolution. Well, these are just examples of people who are on the lower rung of evolution. Do you know that Darwin believed that the white race was at the higher rungs of evolution and would eventually wipe out the colored races because he thought they were on a lower evolutionary rung? Now, that it doesn't in and of itself make evolution false, but it just shows you what follows from evolutionary assumptions. I mean, don't you love it? It's rich. Guy goes into the Museum of Natural History and he sees this monkey ape sequential arrangement all the way up into human beings. Oh, well, that settles it, right? Because some scientists put them in an arrangement. Because after all, these scientists wouldn't just put this in arrangement because they were conjecturing or they were speculating. There's got to be some absolute rock solid scientific evidence showing that there's an ancestor-descendant relationship. Well, no, there isn't. The reason why they put it in this arrangement because they've already accepted evolution to be true first. Therefore, since evolution is true, then there must be some sequential arrangement. Okay? They've got the cart before the horse. And it's so funny. The guy thinks that the sequential arrangement is evidence for evolution when it is actually evolution imposing itself upon the fossils and putting them in that sequential arrangement because they already believe evolution is true. It's the opposite of evidence, and yet he thinks it's evidence. This is how gullible people are.
Can I read the study?
Yes.
It's written by Dr. Milford Wolfbuff. He's an anthropologist and paleoanthropologist, right? His paper is called "The Sinking Erectus," and in the abstract, he concludes that there is no distinct boundary between Homo erectus and Homo sapiens in time or space. We interpret this to mean that there is no speciation involved in the emergence of Homo sapiens from Homo erectus. These reasons combine to require that the lineage be regarded as a single evolutionary species. So it has nothing to do with like evolution at all.
No, so much of evolutionary theory is just utter speculation and conjecture. But your average schmo out there cannot differentiate between that and sense datum. They'll say they're going, well, the coccyx is a vestigial organ. Yeah, what demonstrated that? They used to say the same thing about your tonsils. They used to say the same thing about your appendix. Okay, if anyone wants to continue this thread on evolution, let's say versus creationism, we're free to do it, or we can move on to the existence of God versus not God, or the Christian worldview versus non-Christian worldview, whatever one anyone wants to tangle.
I have a question. What do you think would happen if you allow an evolutionist doctor to remove what he thinks are vestigial organs from your body?
Well, it's a form of bodily mutilation, would it be? And by the way, what's funny is we now have this coming full circle, because people who are evolutionists believe that therefore that gender is a social construct. So we now have doctors. I mean, I think these people should be put up against a brick wall and shot. We have doctors in America and probably elsewhere in this world that are mutilating the genitals and the bodily parts of underage teenagers because they're confused about their sexuality and believe that they're something that they are not. And we're allowing these doctors to mutilate their body, their perfectly normal, functional body parts, and to mutilate them. Okay, we had one such university, Vanderbilt University in the United States, that was doing this and promoting it. And then when it was exposed through certain conservative news people, guess what? Vanderbilt University stopped the mutilation of children. So where did this mutilation from children come from? Did it come from people who believed in God, people who believed in creationism or intelligence design? No, it comes from people believing in evolution. Now, it doesn't mean, consequently, therefore, if somebody believes in evolution, that they're going to sanction the mutilation. But I can guarantee you that these doctors who are doing the mutilations believed in evolution. You know? And after all, gender is just a social construct. It's not, gender isn't the natural outgrowth of one sex as ordained by God, right? So, I mean, we're you know, as time moves on, we're getting more and more depraved, even though, you know, technology increase and the quality of living is better. It's getting worse. I mean, what the Amalekites and the Canaanites did. Hold on, let me just say one more thing. You know, when God called for the destruction of the Canaanites and the Amalekites because they were sacrificing babies among other perverted things, all right, and we have unbelievers decrying what an awful God is, they'll sit around and they'll applaud and have orgasms when as many unborn babies have their arms and legs ripped off in abortion clinics. I mean, this is what a demonic age we live in.
Darth, does Doobie know that you're promoting violence on his server?
How am I promoting violence?
You just said that doctors should be put up against a wall and shot.
No, what I said, I would like it if they would be put up against, okay? I feel that they should be shot because I think if I was king, I'm not calling for people to take the law into their own hands. I am saying that we should make it a law to severely punish these doctors who are mutilating the bodies of underage people. So stop with the bullshit that I'm advocating violence, sir.
I'm pretty sure that's against the TOS.
Listen to me. Stop with the bullshit. I wasn't born yesterday. I was not calling for violence. I said that they should be punished severely, even at the extreme of being put up against a wall and shot because they're mutilating the bodies of children. I think it's disgusting. So stop with the bullshit. I'm not calling for violence. I'm calling for law and order. If I advocate for the death penalty, okay, is that advocating for violence?
Depends on the context.
Answer the question. No, sir. If I advocate for the death penalty for certain crimes, is that calling for violence?
Well,
if I call, listen to me. If I call for the state to impose the death penalty for certain infractions that are illegal, is that a call to violence? And he leaves. You see what a scumbag that guy is? See, this is the tactic of the left. This is the tactic of the LGBT warriors out there. Okay? Because I use a hyperbole that they should be put up against the wall and shot. Okay? I'm talking about law and order. I'm not talking about people taking law into their own hands. You see how perverts like that misrepresent what I'm saying? Did anyone in here construe that I was asking that people pick up arms themselves and act as a law unto themselves and shoot these doctors? No.
No, it's just disgusting that
You see how disgusting they are? Do you think that this guy thought I was calling for people to break the law and shoot these doctors? Does anyone think I was advocating for that? No. And neither did he. Little scumbag.
He worked himself up into a triggering.
Yeah, he's probably one of these snowflake social justice warrior LGBT types. Calling for, these are the same kind of people that say words are violence, okay? That if you quote unquote misgender somebody, you're committing violence, okay?
Yeah, that's like the leftist says, like, you're racist. That's like saying, I don't know how, it's just the leftist, it's like everything's offensive. It's like, you can't have rational, it's just, I don't know.
Well, look, this is what they do. Like, for example, the atheists, on Clubhouse and internet, they said that I was a racist and they compiled like 10 bullet points as to why I was a racist. But when you go through each one of them, none of them show that I'm a racist, okay? And then I had one moron say, well, it's a cumulative case. How can it be a cumulative case when each one of these bullet points doesn't hold up to the measure? Okay? So, for example, because I strongly criticize Martin Luther King, does that make me anti-black? Does that make me a racist? No. Okay? If I make fun of Kamala Harris's name and I call her camel hair, which is a play on words, that makes me racist. Well, how? They say, because you see, women of color have coarse hair. I mean, it's just this is just insane.
Yeah, we have to stop with the whole keep saying, everything's racist, everything is this. Okay. It's like, this is getting ridiculous. It just
look, they don't what they claim they're for free speech, they claim they're for vigorous debate, but they're not. Okay?
Like,
the defenders of evolution do not want a free debate because they consider evolution to be a fact. Okay? Whoever are the holders of dogma in the world of science, they don't want their dogma being challenged. Okay? It's that simple. Right? Do you know how many people that I talk to on Discord who think they understand evolution? They think that they can expound in defending evolution. It turns out that they're just stone cold ignorant. I mean, we actually had the guy in here earlier. The guy actually said to me, look, I went to the Museum of Natural History and I saw a sequential arrangement of skeletons. There you go. There's the proof of evolution. I mean, it doesn't get any more laughable than that. Because skeletons are arranged sequentially, therefore that proves evolution. I mean, it's laughable.
Yeah, I wish I could articulate it better, though.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? We have fossils of bats, right? We have bats today. Why don't we find any fossils whatsoever showing any sequential development of bats? Why don't we find that? Oops. Why don't we find graduals in the fossil record? Because it's not there. The guy thinks because he takes certain ape-like creatures and they're arranged sequentially, that this is evidence of gradualism. It is not, okay? Because if it is, why did Stephen Jay Gould say, who was one of the foremost paleontologists in the world, that the fossil record, they accumulated extensive evidence to show that gradualism is not in the fossil record. So what that means is for that sequential arrangement within the museum, it's an artificial construct of gradualism, because the gradualism isn't there.
Can you put it in maybe a dumbed down way, gradualism? Because maybe some these people don't know what
Gradualism is the idea. Gradualism is the idea that there is a universal common ancestry, and that there is a gradualistic development from lower complex forms of life to higher and higher levels of taxa. Okay. Okay, and they got incrementally, little by little by little by little. But when we look in the fossilized remains, known as the fossil record, excuse me, it doesn't display gradualism. It's not there. Okay, but people commonly believe that it's there, and it's not there. Look how this guy was duped by a museum exhibition. Okay?
Oh yeah, you articulated just well right now. I couldn't do any better than Dart. It's because he tried to make a extrapolation and make it as that's the universal.
Okay, so Jib. So Jib, are you ready to continue the conversation like a mature adult? Because if you're not, I'll just put you back on mute.
Let's see, religion.
Jib, I'm talking to you.
I'm here.
Okay, now, previously you're acting like a snarky teenager, which if you do it again, I will put you back on mute. If I ask you a question, you are to answer the question. You're not to rattle on as though you're giving me a community college lecture and that I'm some just knuckle-dragging, toothless, uninformed creationist from the Deep South. I happen to be well acquainted with Darwinian theory, okay? Now, I'm by no means an expert. I'm sure there are things I don't know. Now, what is your single most piece of evidentiary support that convinces you that evolution is true?
Again, it's probably still the vestigial bones and the fact that we can find.
Were you even listening? Were you even listening to anything I said about vestigiality?
I mean, you're saying that they have like new functions, but vestigial limbs have new functions.
Did you not? Okay, I'll say it again. Did you not listen to what I said about vestigiality? Did you listen to it?
I did. I just think you're inaccurate.
Good. Okay, then repeat back to me what I said about vestigiality.
From my recollection, your statement on vestigiality is that the limbs have separate functions, so they're not actually vestigial. That's what I gathered.
No, sir. Again, you weren't listening. Okay. Vestigiality is an interpretive framework given to sense datum, such as the coccyx, such as the tonsils, such as the appendix, and other body parts that seemingly don't have a function. That overlay or interpretation is the product of an a priori assumption of evolution. So rather than it being evidence for evolution, it is an extrapolation from the a priori assumption of evolution. Okay, so did you understand what I just said?
I believe so.
So simply claiming that it's vestigial does not ipso facto make it vestigial. The vestigiality is the result of certain body parts that, from an evolutionary perspective, because they consider evolution to be true, therefore these are remnants in some way or some form from previous functional body parts.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good. If you don't have an a priori assumption of evolution, how do you conclude they're vestigial?
Let me just look up the definition of a priori.
Yeah, it means before sense perception. Okay.
Is what was the second part?
Okay,
Is
listen to me. Okay, listen to me. Listen to me carefully.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain to you what you have succumbed to that you're not aware of. The vestigiality is an extrapolation. It is a conjecture on certain sense datum from the prior commitment and belief system of evolution. That since evolution happened, there are certain body parts that are holdovers that either have no function or lesser or to no function. How do you know it's vestigial without a prior commitment to evolution?
I just look at it as, for example, like the tailbone doesn't have a function anymore. So
that is false. Okay, that is categorically false. Now, do you know that there are some people who, for a variety of reasons, have to have their coccyx surgically removed? Have you ever heard of that?
Sounds painful, but this is my first time hearing it.
Yeah, so you're speaking out of ignorance. When people have their coccyx removed, there are some nasty side effects. Number one, the coccyx has ligaments that attach to it with the muscle system. The coccyx aids in helping somebody move their bowels. Okay, every person knows this. When you sit on the toilet, you're actually flexing your muscles down there, okay, in order to aid the removal of your bowels at the lower end. Number two, the coccyx also helps in the ability to sit down and stand up, okay? So this idea that the coccyx has no function.
I never said it didn't. It just changed from its original function.
Where did you get that? Where'd you get that from?
I'm looking at vestigial stuff right now.
You're not getting this, okay? I am shocked that you're not getting this. Do you understand? You're saying vestigiality is evidence of evolution rather than it is an extrapolation from evolution. Do you understand the difference?
I understand the difference. I just think you're inaccurate.
Okay, listen. Yeah, you're young and you're smug. You don't. There's nothing. What have I said that's inaccurate? And give me specificity.
Your specific. I would say it's essentially because you're saying that these limbs, like the tailbone, has a function that it's not vestigial. That's what I'm gathering.
No. How is it false for me to say it's not vestigial?
Because everyone else says it is. All the scientists.
What? Yeah, so what? So what if the scientists say it's vestigial? Does that make it true?
It's because they probably have better data and information as a whole.
You're just So you're just appealing to all these smart people tell you it's vestigial, therefore it is. Did you know that scientists years ago would take certain Aboriginal types and put them in zoos because they were at the lower rung of evolutionary development? They put human beings in zoos.
That's social Darwinism, if I remember correctly.
No, sir. It wasn't social Darwinism. It was they put these people in zoos and exhibits because they believed that they were at the lower evolutionary rung. Were those scientists right?
At the time they were dealing with a lot of racism.
Was Darwin a scientist?
Yes.
What is the title of his book?
Title of his book? I don't remember the title of his book. I usually just watch
The Origin of the Species. It's The Origin of the Species, or The Preservation of the Favored Races. The preservation of the favored races. Why would there be a preservation of the favored races? Because some races were on the lower evolutionary rung. Is that scientifically true?
Well, what he meant by favored races are species that can adapt to their environment. That's
Wrong, sir. What he was talking about there is he's talking about human being, the preservation of the favored races.
No, he's not.
He was not talking about humans.
Yeah. You're not welcome because you're a troll, Marshall. So be quiet, or I'm going to meet you. You want to do drive-bys. You don't want to conduct yourself like a mature person. So you can be quiet, Marshall. Okay?
Yeah, because I can only say one or two things before you mute me anyway.
Yeah, you're muted. Okay, you're done. listen carefully. You do not know what you're talking about, okay? What you are citing is that vestigiality is evidence of evolution overall. You have the cart before the horse. The vestigiality is an extrapolation based upon a prior commitment that evolution is true. Therefore, when there are certain body parts that we don't seem to understand what its function is, therefore it's vestigial a la evolution. Okay? Now, without having an a priori assumption of evolution, how do you explain that certain body parts are vestigial? Let me ask you this: are the tonsils vestigial?
If I remember right, I think they are because they don't serve a current use.
Yeah, you're ignorant. Okay, we now know from modern research that the tonsils are a part of your immune system. Okay, now, do you understand? Okay, do you know who Francis Collins is?
I do not.
Francis Collins is the former head of the Human Genome Project. Okay? Now, do you think that somebody gets to the head of the Human Genome Project without understanding DNA?
No.
Okay, Francis Collins wrote a book called The Language of God and he's a staunch evolutionist. I mean, he's a rabid evolutionist, right? Don't be fooled by the title of the book. He professes to be a Christian, but he's a staunch evolutionist. Now, Francis Collins, because he's a devout evolutionist, stated that the bulk of DNA is junk. Okay? Now, is the bulk of DNA being junk evidence of evolution? Evidence of evolution?
I don't have a position on that because I haven't looked into it.
Yeah. It's not that you don't have a position. You don't even understand what I'm talking about. Now, Francis Collins, being one of the elite scientists who understands DNA as good as anyone could get in the scientific realm, declared in one of his books that the non-protein coding regions of the human genome was junk. It was flotsam and jetsam across the evolutionary history. Well, why did he say it is junk? Right? Is it because it's evidence of evolution? No, it's the other way around. Because he believes in evolution, and they believe that protein coding regions are the only functional parts of DNA, they therefore assume that it's an accumulation of junk through an evolutionary history. But as more research goes into the non-protein coding regions, especially in lower life forms, we're finding out that it's not junk at all. It has very important regulatory functions. Okay? So what you're not understanding is what you think are evidences of indicating evolution. They are not evidences of evolution. They are extrapolations from a prior commitment to evolutionary theory. Do you understand the difference?
The difference in them being extrapolations?
Do you understand the difference of something being evidence for evolution versus something being an extrapolation from a prior commitment of evolution being true? Do you understand the difference?
An extrapolation, that's like when you
don't know an extrapolation. No, an extrapolation is an extension beyond what you think that you know. Okay? So, for example, if we can measure the speed of a bullet coming out of a gun, we can measure the deceleration of the bullet at a certain rate. We can extrapolate down the line as to when it will come to a full stop. Okay? We're extrapolating the rate of deceleration. Okay? Now, an extrapolation, okay, not that all extrapolations are a bad thing, but just because something's an extrapolation doesn't make it true. Because if we could know that it was true, it wouldn't be an extrapolation. What I'm trying to explain to you is that when you appeal to vestigial organs as evidence of evolution, what you're not realizing is you're being propagandized by the proponents of evolution. Not that they're trying to deceive you, but this is not evidence of evolution. This is an extrapolation from a prior commitment of evolution. You understand the difference?
I understand what you're saying.
Right. Do you understand the difference? Now, so an extrapolation from a prior commitment to evolution is not in and of itself evidence of evolution. It's simply an extrapolation from evolution. So when you say that certain body parts are vestigial, that is not evidence of evolution, but an extrapolation from evolution. Do you understand your mistake?
I still wouldn't call it a mistake.
Okay, you're done. Okay, I'm done with you. You're how old are you? How old are you?
I mean, you asked me a few days ago how old I was.
How old are you?
28.
Okay, I feel very sad for you, because if you had told me you were 16, 17, or 18, I would have more sympathy. But being a 25-year-old man, you should exercise more smarts. I'm trying to explain to you that vestigial organs are not evidence of evolution. They are an extrapolation from a prior commitment to the theory of evolution. And you refuse to see that that is the case. You barely are willing to acknowledge that something can be either evidence for or an extrapolation from a theoretical concept. Okay? You barely are willing to acknowledge that. So you're a waste of time to talk to.
Yeah, if you can't even acknowledge that, I mean, it's like when you're sold out for, like, that's the thing, like the prior commitment, you see it through the lens of,
Like for example, when that clown earlier said, look, I went to the Museum of Natural History. I saw evidence of evolution. I saw this sequential arrangement of these little monkey-like creatures all the way into a human being. And he thinks that that's evidence of evolution. It is not. It is a conjectural, extrapolated arrangement based upon a prior commitment of evolution.
Yeah, it's an extrapolation. Where that's why, Darth, I can't articulate it very well. You could do it really well, and I try
That's
to.
because I've had more time. Had more time to practice. All right. No, people are brainwashed into evolution because they've never heard people that are competent and qualified to show them that they're being sold a bill of goods here. They're being told things that are facts that are not. So, for example, when they say that the coccyx is a vestigial organ and that's evidence of evolution, they don't understand that that's not evidence of evolution. That is an extrapolation from a prior commitment of evolution, because some people want to claim we don't know its function. Well, that's ludicrous to begin with either. We do know that the coccyx is involved in aiding sitting up and standing up and sitting down, and it also helps to relieve your bowels. Everybody knows this sitting on a toilet, okay? Now, let me ask you this. Is there anyone in here who does not understand that your coccyx and its muscular connections, the ligaments and the muscular connections dealing with your bowel regions, okay, your bottom area, that your coccyx, along with that, is not involved in. Well, listen, when you move your bowels, okay, sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes
I don't think science is an extrapolation. So.
What?
Yeah, I mean, you've been talking a lot about this extrapolation point, and I've been joining like 10 minutes ago, and I've heard it. So, is that were you just dunking on the guy for saying that like vestigial organs are evidence of evolution? Is that your point?
You're too close to your mic source, so I only got some of what you said.
Oh, okay. So is your point? Your point was simply that this guy he's wrong because he's saying it's a fact, evolution's a fact. Look at vestigial organs. But you said you're presupposing that evolution is real, and then you're looking at things and saying, well, that has to be evolution.
No. What I'm saying
is what you spent 10 minutes saying. Yeah, but I'm just saying.
What I'm saying clearly is that what he's claiming as evidence is not evidence of evolution, but is an extrapolation from a prior commitment,
of course,
of evolution.
Bias. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's it's a form of confirmation bias.
Absolutely. Yeah. So so we've already gone through that point. Is there anything else?
Yeah, and I explained it to him over and over again, and
I think the chat understands that point. It's just that we should probably move on now.
Yeah, people are so gullible, and I have to admit I was there too. The fact that I changed my mind doesn't make me right, okay? Because people go, well, I used to be this way and now I'm this way. That doesn't make you right, doesn't make me right. But I remember when I used to lap up, reading all these books on evolution, and what I thought was actually evidences was just utter conjecture pretending to be evidence.
I used to be like that too. I used to believe in like Darth and like others. I used to believe into evolution. I like bought into it because it's like we just look at that. We don't do further research.
When I was a kid, when I would look through the Time Life textbooks on evolution and anthropology, it's like I thought I was reading science, and when the stuff that I was reading was largely simply conjecture. Wasn't science. It came in the name of science, but it wasn't science.
I think that still is science. I think science, you have to acknowledge like a large margin of error when you're doing science, because science ultimately is observing. It's like a perpetual observing a phenomena in the natural world, and then you write it down, you jot it down, you use math to figure it out.
Can you observe? Yeah, sir. That has to do with observation, testing, and repeatability. Can you observe the evolutionary past?
Kind of. I mean,
no.
Depending on what
that's wrong. No, sir. That's wrong. Let me ask you this question: do you think that the fossil record is an exemplar of gradualism?
Not really. No.
Okay, then explain to me.
Scientists.
How do you observe?
I'm not an archaeologist. I don't know the full extent of how they look through
the fact of the matter. Yeah, dude. You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to evolution. You're just when people don't know what they're talking about, they just generalize, and that's what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Explain to me how you observe an evolutionary past. Explain that to me.
What I hear by that question. No. What I hear by that question is simply, can we find some sort of
Sir,
evidence?
Stop with the preamble. Stop, or I'm going to kick you from the room. Stop with the preamble. Okay, I'm sick and tired. I'm going to kick you out of the room if you don't stop. This because I asked you a question. Whenever I ask somebody like you a question, I get this mini community college lecture. Okay, bye. No, you're done. No, you're done. No, yeah, you're bad. Right? Yeah. See, I get this long-winded community college lecture preamble. I don't want to hear your preamble like you're a newly appointed professor at a community college. I asked a specific question, and I'm just getting this long preamble. You're wasting my time.
I mean, have you seen the past?
See, this never. People wonder why I get irritated. This never fails. They sit there and they waste my time like I don't know what they're already going to say. I don't want to hear this glorious preamble.
Should we only listen to what you say, or like?
No, you shouldn't just listen to what I say. But when I ask a question with specificity, I don't want to hear this vague preamble like you're speaking to a 6th grade class or you're giving a community college lecture. I want my question answered. I don't want a glorious preamble. Okay?
And he wasn't talking about
I'll try it again. We'll give you one more chance. Answer the question. Don't give me this preamble. Don't give me vagaries. Okay, don't say, well, we this. Tell me how you can observe a Darwinian evolution. I'm waiting, Tio. Tell me how you can observe an evolutionary descent in the past.
There's two groups of particular
plants in the
animals
current day.
separated by earthquake, and
I mean, I guess Ghost Pepper was going on the right track, but I would say, what do you mean by observe? Do you mean like I have to?
Goodbye. Goodbye. Okay, here we go again. What do you mean by up? What do you mean by observe? You know, he says we can observe the past. Okay, all right. Have a nice day. What do you mean by observe?
Yeah, well, why we have to ask that? Because he already knows. Like,
See, this is what they
like,
do. They stall, they dodge, they delay, they give this long-winded preamble, they monologue like they're giving a community college lecture, they're speaking to Mrs. Johnson's 7th grade class. Okay. I think I exhibit that I have a good, decent working knowledge of evolutionary theory. I have a decent working of basic ideas in science. I have no claim of expertise. And I ask a straightforward question, and all I get is these vague monologues. Yeah, they're wasting my time. Okay?
You know what's so interesting, Darth? Like, if he were to put up evidence, is he would have to use the evidence right now, make an extrapolation, and be like, "Oh, that's how we know the evolutionary process." But that's
See,
not. You can't.
let me tell you a little inside secret. People like this, who have drunk the Kool-Aid of evolution, whether it's in secondary school, college, things like that, or even graduate school, they think that people like me are these hayseeds, you know, these semi-toothless hayseeds who are, you know, foaming at the mouth creationists, you know, who are, you know, maybe partial flat earthers out there, and that we don't believe in evolution because, you know, we're just these uneducated, you know, country bumpkins, and, you know, the Bible says it, I believe it, and therefore, you know, these dirty, demonic evolution scientists, I don't believe anything. And they sit there like they're going to lecture us like I don't understand evolutionary theory. Okay? I think because I object to evolution, therefore I don't understand it. And then they start giving me a 7th grade representation of evolution.
Yeah,
It's like this little kid before, this little kid, oh, well, vestigial organs are evidence of evolution. And what he didn't realize, it's not evidence of evolution. It's an extrapolation from a prior commitment that evolution is true. Okay.
Primal revelation at the heart of civilization, Son of God worship, i.e., Hali, Helios, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Speak louder.
We find the worship of Hari, or HR, in pre-dynastic Egypt and throughout Africa at the earliest time. The worship of Heli in Europe.
Yeah, sir, listen to me. Do you hold on a second? Are you an atheist or a theist?
Theist.
Okay. Do you believe in evolution?
No.
Then what are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to shift the discussion into real theology.
All right. Yeah. Have a nice day. Yeah. We're not just gonna have somebody just rambling into the microphone. Push away the bong.
Darth, have you ever?
So, Darth, how have you been doing? Are you? How's your day?
Does anybody have anything substantive to say? Otherwise, keep your mouth shut.
Darth, I was just going to ask, is there any like footage of you debating like someone who's considered an expert on evolution?
Not that I'm aware of, but it wouldn't matter.
All right, I just thought that'd be interesting to watch.
Well, the point is they're not going to be able to defeat the defeaters that I bring. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So, for example, people reason probabilistically, including the experts, but when it comes to evolution, they abandon probabilistic reasoning because if they didn't, they'd have to reject evolution.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
Hey, Darth,
Okay.
didn't you ask Lawrence Strauss a few questions back in the day?
Your microphone is weak.
Yeah, there's no way to change that, unfortunately, right now.
I raised your volume to 200%, sir.
Didn't you ask Lawrence Strauss a few questions a while back?
Yeah, I did, to his utter embarrassment. It was so embarrassing for me,
I guess he's an
him. He
expert.
got rid of me. Well, first of all, it wasn't on the issue of evolution. It was on his atheism, okay? And he totally shot himself in the foot. Okay? Lawrence Krauss boldly and proudly proclaimed, "We don't need God. We can explain everything through laws of nature." When it was my turn to ask him questions, he folded like a cheap lawn chair. When I asked him to do that, I asked him to explain to me what is it that is foundational and fundamental that dictates all states of affairs. He got angry because he knew he got his bluff called, and he goes, "I don't know. Why does it even matter?" And then to show you how incompetent he is philosophically, when he was asked, how is it there is no God, he denied denying God. But then he said in his AMA, there's no need for God. If you say God is not needed, that's the denial of God right there. So you see, even as a theoretical physicist, he makes an elementary blunders that even a high school student should be aware of. If you say God is not needed, that is the denial of God. Yet he says that he's not denying God while saying God isn't needed. I mean, that's just a massive blunder. But that's typically what atheists do. They deny God through certain vocabulary and certain rhetorical flourishes, and then when they're called on the carpet, they go, "Oh, well, I'm not denying God." "Oh, yes, you are."
But it interests you, especially in one way or another, you're denying.
Look, P.Z. Myers has
denying.
been a foaming at the mouth atheist for many, many years. And when he was asked in an AMA, how is it there is no God? All of a sudden, he turns into an agnostic. And then after the AMA, weeks later, all of a sudden, he's a flaming atheist again on his YouTube channel. What an amazing transformation.
I kind of talked to him about that. He said it's like an act. It's like a persona that the college wanted him to do so he could like drive traffic or drive so Minnesota would become more prestigious in their like philosophy.
No, sir. No, sir. P.Z. Myers. Are you talking about P.Z. Myers or are you talking about Krauss?
Oh, Myers. Yeah, P.Z. Myers from Minnesota.
This is not an act. This guy's a foaming at the mouth atheist. It's just that when you ask a precise, circumspect question, he then changes his tune because he can't defend what he's been foaming at the mouth at for years. Okay?
You could look in some of the newer stuff he's done has really been anti-atheist. About atheists were like a lot of scumbags.
As far back as 2008 or 2009, he wrote a paper on Thanksgiving where he was basically advocating that there's no God. Okay? But you see, this is what some of these atheists would do. Like, for example, Lawrence Krauss did the same thing. When I asked him, how is it there is no God? Oh, I'm not saying there's no God. These guys, they're liars. Okay? They're liars. When I asked the Dr. Professor Stephen Law, how is it there is no God? Go listen to the video. He couldn't have gotten more creepy and sleazy in his response to me. He refused to defend. Well, go listen to the video.
Do you have it on your channel?
No, you can just go to YouTube and type in DARTH DAWKINS versus Stephen Law.
Stephen Law, okay.
Yeah, listen to the video. When I asked him how is it that there is no God, he tried to verbally tap dance his way around it. And when I stuck to the question, I said, Dr. Law, you're not answering my question. I want to know how it is there is no God. And then he tried to change the subject from global atheism to local atheism, where he likes to attack the notion that there's a maximally benevolent God in a world where he says evil exists. I said, well, that's not my question. My question is, your position is there is no God. And when in the beginning, I said, is it your position that there is no God? And he said, yes. Then when I asked him to defend it, he basically tried to verbally tap dance his way around it and essentially refused to defend his position. And then at least halfway through it, toward the end, He tried to, ad hominem me and impugn me when all I was doing, asking him, is to defend his God denialism, and he refused to do it. This shows you how creepy these people are. Now, I can respect his academic achievement. He's actually written some books on philosophy that are probably well worth reading. He's a very intelligent man. Okay, I don't question his academic prowess and his understanding in philosophy, but when it comes to the defense of atheism, he gets really creepy. Okay,
Like, what do you mean creepy? Like he says like things that are like
you're gonna have to
perverted
listen to the. He gets creepy because when I stay focused like laser beam, wanting him to defend that there is no God, he kept on trying to change the parameter of the questions and rabbit trail toward what is called local atheism, that he disbelieves in a maximally benevolent God. But that's not atheism. Okay? And then when I stay focused and I pointed out to him, Dr. Law, you're not addressing my question, he got pissed. And so then what he tried to do was to impugn me. How do you impugn somebody who's merely asking you to defend why there's no God? You don't find that creepy and sleazy when he was verbally impugning me, when all I was doing is please tell me why there's no God? What is there to impugn me about? What is there to impugn me about? It
Does he
doesn't matter
know
whether
you
I'm
personally or?
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
Go
that
and
is
listen to the
problematic.
video. Don't take my word for it. Go listen to the video. It's not that
You
long.
can just give us the name of the video. What's the name of the video?
Just go to YouTube, type in DARTH DAWKINS and Stephen Law with a PH, Stephen Law.
Darth, did you notice his when he tried to switch to theological non-cognitivism as well?
That was beyond creepy. He tried to accuse me of being slippery. I mean, you can't even make this up. It was so creepy that I couldn't even believe what I was hearing coming out of this. This is a guy who debated William Lane Craig. Okay, but you know what? That's a very good point. That you're right. At one point, he tried to do, I don't even know what the word God means. Well, you knew what the word God meant earlier in the conversation when you said there was no God. Then all of a sudden, when you can't defend your atheism, all of a sudden you turn into a theological non-cognitivist. Yeah, I'm sorry. That guy was just downright creepy.
So what is it about
That's kind of what I was talking about not Lawrence Krauss, P.Z. Myers. If you look up some of his current stuff, he identifies as a Jesus agnostic. He doesn't call himself atheist anymore. He says the happy atheist, and then the Jesus agnostic. He says there's a lot of proof for Jesus historically, but the proof
No, sir. You can go back a number of months within the last year or so. I don't remember what the exact time or frame is. A month or two after I spoke with him, and when you listen to his interaction with me, it's not only creepy, but it's funny at the same time. He's groaning and moaning on the microphone like he was a retired grandfather who has to take care of a precocious 5-year-old. Okay? He's literally groaning and moaning on the microphone. Right? Now, weeks to months later, he did a YouTube video declaring how he became an atheist. And he declared there's no God. And you know what's funny? Do you want to know what his rationale, why there's no God? Is because a friend of his who he knew in high school, who was a nice guy, was tragically killed in an automobile accident. That's what made him decide there's no God.
I guess that did it for him, Darth.
This is the level of sophistication of atheists that we're dealing with. Dozo, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what do you think it is about intellectuals that atheism speaks to them? Like, why do you think it draws them in?
It's called pride.
Pride.
There is a tendency for when people tend to be more intelligent, there's a tendency or an inclination toward pride. especially when you have accumulated knowledge, okay? That's why the Bible says knowledge puffs up, right? 1 Corinthians 13, knowledge puffs up.
Does that
right?
include wealth? Because wealth is also...
Okay. No. Atheism is first and foremost the product of one thing. It is the adoption of the would-be autonomy of the individual. You cannot be an atheist without holding to the notion that your mind and your cognition is autonomous. From that autonomy, which constitutes the refusal to acknowledge God as God, arises the various declarations of God denialism, which is just simply based upon not even half-baked cliches.
Okay, can
Yeah,
so
that
that
just like
would
your
be that would be autonomy usually manifests itself in terms of pride, bitterness, immorality, such as drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, sexual deviancy. And because the would-be autonomous man wants to preserve his autonomy and preserve whatever his lifestyle is, or continue in his bitter. See, some people become atheists because they're bitter, because there are tragedies that happen to loved ones. P.Z. Myers is a perfect example. Atheist evolutionist Michael Shermer is another example. When his beloved fiancée died tragically, this has helped to spawn his atheism.
You know, Dwight, I never understood that because, it's sad to see loved ones pass away, but that, like, loved one passed away, it didn't shake my faith, Like, and when you mentioned PZ Myers, it's like, what I think is that the death of someone, that it just did it for me. I just never understood that. Like, I mean, I lost my grandfather, and I don't be like, oh, shake my face.
Well,
And be like, oh, no.
some people choose to remain humble and recognize that they're not God. They don't choose to think that they're smarter and wiser than God is in terms of questioning what he permits in the course of human history and his plan of redemption. And so they're not blinded by their own self-pride, but other people are. And because they're blinded by their pride, then they come up with all these lame excuses as to why it's reasonable not to believe in God. But what it all boils down to, as I said, is one thing. They are adopting that their reason and cognition is autonomous rather than their reason is derivative of the autonomous mind of God. But the notion that reason is autonomous is itself indefensible, and it is incoherent on the very terms that the unbeliever espouses to use to dismiss God. So unbelief is irrational, and it is irrational on its own terms. I defy anyone who is let me just say, I defy anyone in here who is an unbeliever. Tell me right now, I'll give you unrestricted time, I'll set a timer, explain to me why it is reasonable not to believe in God, and reasonable why it's not to believe in God being perfect and is exemplified in the God of the Bible.
Actually, I'm agnostic, but I heard some arguments why it is wrong. But do you have some arguments for the belief why it's
okay? Like, let me just say something first about your agnosticism, okay?
Okay.
If somebody says there is no God, are they denying God?
Yeah.
Okay, if somebody says there is no need for God, are they denying God?
Not really. I mean, they just say that they don't need it.
That's incorrect. Okay. God, by definition, is defined as the supreme being and the creator of all things that are not himself. So definitionally, God is defined as the necessary precondition of everything that is not himself. So definitionally, God is the necessary precondition. God is needed as the precondition of all things, definitionally. Now, do you understand? Now, do you understand the definition of God?
I heard different definitions. I don't know which one.
Okay. If God is not defined as the necessary precondition, then God is not God. You're just simply talking about an unimaginably powerful creature that is subject to one or more parameters that we are subject to. So it is uncontroversial for God to be defined as the necessary precondition of all things that are not himself. So do you accept the definition that God is the necessary precondition?
I will accept that definition, sure.
Yeah, the definition doesn't mean you accept that God exists. Now, so if God is defined as being the necessary precondition, okay, then if somebody comes along and says God is not necessary, that is the same thing as saying God doesn't exist. Are we clear on that point? It doesn't matter what they understand. It doesn't matter their intentions. If they assert that God is not necessary, if they assert that God is not needed, that is the same propositional content of saying God doesn't exist.
Well, they're at least refusing to obey.
This is not controversial, sir. This is not controversial. Now, people may find it objectionable, but it is not controversial. Okay? So if somebody says God is not needed, God is not necessary, that has the same propositional content as to say God doesn't exist.
Okay, but an agnostic person...
Sir, let's focus on one thing at a time. I'm giving you something that should not be controversial, okay? God is defined as the necessary precondition of all things that are not himself. So if somebody says God is not necessary, that has the same propositional content that God does not exist. Are we clear?
Yeah, we are clear, but is that agnostic?
So listen. Well, we haven't gotten to that yet. So what I'm doing is I'm laying a groundwork so that you cannot make objections hereafter. Now, to say that God is not necessary is the same thing as saying God does not exist. Are we in agreement?
No.
I didn't hear you.
Somebody was talking.
No, I'm asking Mike. Mike, are we in agreement?
Partially, because it could also be that...
No, Mike. No, Mike. This is not... No, Mike, stop. Mike, this is not controversial. It's not debatable. If God is defined as the necessary precondition, okay, if that definition is accepted, then for somebody to say God is not necessary, that is the same thing as saying God doesn't exist. Are we in agreement?
If that's the definition, yes.
Okay. Now, if you don't define God as the necessary precondition, we're not talking about God. What we're now talking about is maybe an unembodied mind that is unimaginably powerful who's going to get you if you don't love him. But that creature is not the ground of all being. That creature is not the necessary precondition of all things that are not himself. So when we're talking about God, we're talking about the supreme being and the creator of all things that are not himself, okay? Now, so I'm not going to keep on beating a dead horse. We are in agreement to say God is not necessary is the same thing as saying God does not exist. Agreed?
If that's your definition, yes.
Agreed. Do you agree? Well, that's the definition of God, okay? Because if God isn't defined... Yes. Right. Okay, good. So we're going to move on. Now, You as an agnostic are claiming that you neither assert nor deny the existence of God, but that you are suspending judgment about both propositions. That is the claim, right?
Suspending meaning not putting time to investigate?
You are not asserting that God does exist. You're not asserting that he doesn't exist.
Yes.
Okay, now, sometimes people make claims that don't hold up. Okay? There are men who walk around, they show up on TV, they show up in politics, and they wear lipstick, they wear makeup, and they pretend they're women. They're not women. They're pretending to be women. Okay? Now, sometimes people walk into pawn shop with antiques, and they claim it's an antique, but they're not antiques sometimes. Now, you are claiming that you are suspending judgment and not denying God's existence. That is your claim. Now, we're going to examine to see if that's true. Now, I ask you a very simple question. When you assert facts, okay? When you assert facts, do you reference the necessity of God?
Can you repeat it one more time, please?
When you assert facts, do you reference the necessity of God for those facts? Do you do that?
Yes.
Then you're not an agnostic, because if you reference the necessity of God, that is an affirmation, an indirect affirmation that God exists.
But I reference it by investigating on the subject.
Sir, if you are not capable of understanding what I just said, we're going to move on to somebody else. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You can't claim to suspend judgment about God, but then say that when you invoke facts, you are referencing the necessity of God for those facts. Okay? So the fact of the matter is, agnostics claim that they invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God. Are we clear?
If you hold that.
Are we clear on what I just said? All right, we're gonna move on because you're not equipped to handle this type of conversation. Okay.
Mr. Dawkins, I think he doesn't understand the concept of an uncaused cause.
That's not what we're talking about.
But it kind of is, because in order for everything to exist,
that's only, sir, listen to me. What you are saying is semi-related. It is not what we're discussing. Okay.
I would.
The fact of the matter is, the reason why I'm stopping is because I will only get further agitated with him, because he's either purposely stagnating the interaction, or he's not equipped to carry on the conversation. And it would be unfair to him, because I'm just going to react with frustration that he's incapable of understanding these basic concepts. Maybe it's a language barrier. Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So
but I'm just worried that he doesn't have the prerequisite knowledge to understand what you're saying.
Well, then I think we're pretty much on the same page. Okay. Okay. So the point is the point is that the agnostic claim to suspend judgment about God doesn't hold up upon examination. It is an empty claim. Okay? It's like if I came into a pawn shop and I said, I have an antique I want to sell you. Okay, what do you got? You say, I have Abraham Lincoln's cell phone. How much will you give me for Abraham Lincoln's cell phone? Does the claim hold up upon examination?
No.
No. Neither does agnosticism hold up upon examination, because agnostics invoke facts. They will either invoke facts with reference to the necessity of God or without. There's not a third option. The issue is not what they're thinking, it's what they do. So agnostics, as well as atheists, invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God. I could take the same propositional content and restate it. Facts invoked, no God needed. It's the same proposition. Okay? And if you say facts invoked, no God needed, okay, then you are denying God whether you realize it or not, whether you admit it or not. So agnosticism is about as real as a claim as having Abraham Lincoln's cell phone. Now,
And even one.
you can be agnostic about Bigfoot. You could be agnostic about the Loch Ness Monster, but you can't be agnostic about God. Now, when I say that, people flip out. People think I'm nuts because they're absolutely convinced that you can be agnostic about God. But that's only because they have not analyzed the agnostic claim from a transcendental perspective. Once you analyze the claim from a transcendental perspective, the claim no longer holds up. Okay? So agnostics deny God implicitly, indirectly, while not denying God explicitly. Right?
Yeah, Darth, like there are things you can how should I put it? Uh, that there are some things you can say if it's uh how, how do I word it? Okay, with God, the creator of everything, you can't. He has to exist for there to be uh how should I? I'm sorry, I'm not. Let me try to articulate it. Darth. It's like you can't do without God because without God, there will be nothing.
Well, people think they can do without God, but the answer is you can't. They think you can, but you can't. And if you think you can, you cannot do without referencing God within your worldview. Because if you attempt to do so, then your worldview will be incoherent from top to bottom. There will be no ultimate starting point or reference point as to why anything is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of like Darth. It's like how should I
And
put it?
by the way, I am not simply saying God exists because otherwise everything could be incoherent, because maybe everything is incoherent. My position is that God is because God has taken the initiative to reveal himself by his purpose in and through creation in an undeniable, irrefutable way. But when one refuses to accept that, even when it is further unpacked, this constitutes a denial thereof, which also requires an unpacking and defense, which cannot be done.
Yeah, I just have to work on my articulation, Darth. I understand what you're saying, and you try to help them get it. At first, I didn't get it, and it's how you articulate it and everything. But yeah. It's always good to have you, Darth. I always learn something. I always try to better understand. Try to be humble.
The first thing is, where did I leave off? Because I was holding down the wrong button.
Something about facts and reference. I'll put in my words like reference.
Can anyone else help me? Where did you last hear me? Because I was holding down the wrong button.
Come on, someone help. Yeah.
Thank you for your help, everybody.
Well, it was
So
it's very hard to
yeah,
follow
so
you since your reasoning is very, very fallacious.
You were
okay,
talking
well
about
then okay, explain. Okay, so yeah, you want to be so you want to be a lying little scumbag. It's not that I'm hard to follow. You're just pretending that. You just want to say it's fallacious. If I was very hard to follow, then how do you know it's fallacious?
Got him.
Sir, I find it very uncivil.
Yeah. Sir, listen to me. I'm going to turn your microphone up. If I was very hard to understand, then how do you know it's fallacious? You see, you're full of crap because what you're doing is you say, "Oh, you're hard to follow," but because it's fallacious. Why don't you just come out and say,
so your answer to my critique is that I'm a scumbag, sir.
Listen, you are a scumbag because if it was really
thank you for calling me a scumbag.
Yeah, you are. Are you PO? Are you PO? I asked you a question, Fritz. Hey, Fritz, are you PO? See, no answer, folks. So then you must be PO, huh? Let me look at you.
That's really powerful because he contradicted himself. He said, A, I can't understand what you're saying. Then B, he understands what you're saying, and it's fallacious.
Yeah. No. You did understand what I said, and you concluded it was fallacious. So you got busted. You were lying, sir.
It's like he sunk his own battleship.
I was talking about your reason.
It's hard to follow you because it's fallacious. Hey, sir, listen to me. I understand English is not your first language, but that's okay. But the point is, if you think you're going to fool me, do not overtalk me. If you think you're going to bamboozle me, you're not. If I was hard to follow, if what I was saying was unintelligible, then how do you know it was fallacious? You haven't answered that question, sir. It's hard to follow you because what you say is fallacious? Well, then you must have following what I said because you coherently analyzed what I said in order to conclude that it was fallacious. Okay? There's a difference between something being fallacious and it being... Okay, listen, don't overtalk me. If I was hard to follow, do you mean it was unintelligible?
I think you're not only hard to follow, but you're not reasoning clearly, man. I said that your reasoning process is fallacious. You calling me a scumbag is not.
You know what? I'm about to. You know what? I am so agitated with. I am so agitated with you right now. I'm about to kick you out of the room, but I'm going to give you a second chance. You are lying through your teeth. Okay, all right. You want to keep it? Okay, goodbye. Okay, you're done. Okay.
Maybe
you see, you catch these people in a lie. Oh, it's very hard to follow you because you're fallacious. No. If I was hard to follow, then how do you know that content was fallacious unless you understood what I was saying?
Well, maybe try to say that it's hard to follow you because they try to follow you logically while you're inconsistent.
No, sir. See, you're not getting this. Stop white knighting for him. Okay, what he's not understanding is I think part of the problem why he got busted so quickly is because English is not his first language. Okay? And so sometimes when English is not your first language, it's easier to lie in your own language than when English is your second language, sir. Okay? So when it's something is hard, look, if I said to somebody, well, it's hard to follow you, I'm not really understanding what you're saying here. It doesn't follow from that I don't understand it, that it's fallacious. It's because he did understand what I was saying, and thereby, because he analyzed it, he concluded that it was fallacious. He was lying, but he was inarticulate when he was lying because English is not his first language. So stop white knighting for him.
Is it easy to follow a fool if you're knowledgeable?
I didn't hear you.
If you're knowledgeable, is it easy to follow a fool?
Possibly. Sometimes people who are fools can express their foolishness in intelligible ways, but the reasoning itself is invalid. Okay, being a fool doesn't necessarily entail unintelligibility. Okay.
Imagine you press
what I get, hold on. What I get are these cheap shots. Watch this. Okay, so he left. Watch, I'll give him a second chance. Fritz, I know that English is not your first language, but if you dodge, if you evade, you're going to be ejected. Now, explain to me specifically, without generalizing or being vague, specifically, what did I say that was fallacious?
Yeah, you said lots of things that were fallacious, and then you misstated my position.
Stop right there. Hey, did I not ask you to be specific? That's strike one. I will repeat the question again. Give me specificity of how I was fallacious. Go.
Wait, just misstated my position. You strawmanned my position.
Strike two.
Fallacy.
Strike two.
Well, this is a direct answer to your question.
Okay. Strike
Please,
two.
don't be.
I want you to strike three. You're done. Okay.
He can't even tell you specifically.
Now, did I not unmute him? I unmuted him and I said, tell me with specificity how what I said is fallacious. Did we get specificity? No, we did not. I said strike one. I said, tell me with specificity how what I said was fallacious. Then he starts bitching and complaining about how I strawmanned him, which is not a stipulation of how what I said was fallacious to begin with, right? And then when I try to ask him the same question a third time, he just starts arguing with me on the microphone.
Generalities, vagueness.
So you see how these drive-bys act in bad faith. They want to make accusations and they don't support it.
What is a straw man considered but a logical fallacy? Fallacious is in the name.
No, I don't think you're listening very carefully.
Maybe not.
He said that what I said was fallacious. Okay. He never. Okay. Are you going to let me finish? He originally said that what I said was fallacious. What I said. I then asked him to give me specificity about what I said was fallacious. I gave him 3 opportunities to do so. Not once did he specify what I said was fallacious. But he accused me in his total evasion of specifying what I said is fallacious by accusing me of strawmanning him. There was no strawmanning of him whatsoever, and that has nothing to do with him answering the question about him specifying about what I said was fallacious. So what he is he's just one of these drive-bys who just likes to shoot his mouth off and generalize, okay? So it's a waste of time. I unmuted him because he was just argumentative, and I gave him another chance. Give me specificity, okay? 3 times he refused to give specificity about what I said was fallacious.
Yeah, exactly. I can see why you get frustrated because look, he didn't.
Why should I have unlimited patience for knuckleheads like that? Why? Tell me why.
It's grace, right?
No, I did give him grace. Okay. I unmuted him after his bad conduct. which I shouldn't have done. I said, I'm going to give you another chance. Tell me with specificity how what I said is fallacious. Now, he was given 3 opportunities to do so. Did he do so?
No.
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 And if you're gonna give him
Good.
like more chances, he's probably gonna.
Yeah. No, I think he
What are we
was
talking about
specific
here?
about. He was
I
specific
need
about
to
the
join.
type of
Sorry.
fallacy he accused you of, but not the example, which is a failure on his part.
No.
He did not. He didn't specify anything whatsoever about a fallacy, did he? Did he specify in any way?
Well, a straw man is a specific type of fallacy.
No, sir.
He doesn't give you
Stop, sir. Are you having listening problems? When he invoked a straw man, that
Which
was
is
in reference where he said, listen, hey, dumbass, why don't you listen? Okay? When he invoked a straw, okay, you're done. All right, goodbye. You're a little troll. When he invoked the straw man, that had nothing to do with his original accusation about that what I said is fallacious. Okay?
Well,
Yeah,
what are we
he
talking
said you
about?
said a whole bunch of. Can I say something?
If you can't follow what somebody says, then what you say is, I am having difficulty following you, so I can't make intelligible sense out of what you're saying. To say something that is fallacious means that it's either wrong or it's like a non sequitur, that it doesn't necessarily follow. Okay? Now, I gave him ample opportunity to explain himself. Okay? Not being able to follow doesn't mean that it's fallacious. He might conclude that it's unintelligible, but it doesn't follow that it's fallacious. But this guy is just a drive-by.
All he said, Darth, was he said there's a whole bunch of things you said fallacious. You call him what's specific, and he just says, "Oh, a whole bunch of things."
We're done with this guy. Look, this guy is a dime a dozen. We get these imbeciles doing this crap all the time. We can't get any intelligent, mature-minded opposition. I want to have intelligent, mature-minded opposition, and I think we'll find the flying spaghetti monster first before we find intelligent, mature-minded opposition.
So I mean, I don't.
You know what, Darth?
Darth,
I tried to. You know, Darth, I tried to talk to
Derek, please stop interrupting, okay? Give it a pause. Somebody at the bottom, you wanted to speak?
You me?
Yeah, you were speaking.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say, if you wanted to talk about a different thing, I've only just joined, so I don't know what you're talking about. But if you want to wrap this up, then fine. But
Well,
if you
we're talking about God. We're talking about God or not God, the Christian worldview versus other worldviews.
Yeah. So I was. Yeah, sure. I was gonna ask, what do you think about epistemological nihilism? But like, I don't want to like completely divert the conversation.
Epistemological nihilism. It's insanity. First of all, nobody is that. They don't live that way. Anybody who says they're an epistemological nihilist is a liar.
That's fair. What do you think about when you think of epistemological nihilism? How do you find that?
They're claiming that there's no ground for knowledge. Okay, that knowledge is impossible. Knowledge is meaningless. Yeah, well, they're liars. Anybody who says that is a liar. They don't live this way.
Wait, hang on. I don't wait. Liar or just maybe not
No, they're liars.
I could see how you might say that they maybe don't know what they're talking about. Like I wouldn't say that, but I could see how you would say that.
I consider them liars, sir.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah, sure.
You're perfectly at liberty to disagree with me. I consider them liars. They don't live this way.
Yeah, no, I think I disagree like on whether they're liars or not, but I suppose it's besides the point. How do you know that what you think you know is the truth? I suppose is a deeper question. I don't mean
I'll
like.
tell you why. Sure. How do I know?
Yeah.
Because God in his creation has made me to know in a way that is undeniable and irrefutable.
Okay.
That's
so
how.
I have a. Okay.
How
I
do
get
I
that.
know? I'll tell you why. Because God, who will be the source of all creation and the source of all knowledge will be rooted in God's revelatory and creative actions, and that's how I will know. If I know anything at all, if I know that there's a fingernail on my left pinky, if I know how much money is in my bank account, if I know the sun is out, whatever I know from the Christian worldview, I know because of God himself is the ultimate starting point and the ultimate reference point, in that all knowledge is rooted in the creative actions and revelatory actions of God. That's how I know it. Now, if you want to reject that and try to, not that that you're going to do this, but if you want to charge that that is circular, that's going to backfire on you.
So no, I wouldn't. I mean, I could say that that's. I don't know, but I wanted to go like a bit deeper. Like, I suppose this is gonna sound like really philosophical arse gazing, but how do you know that I want to go even deeper with that claim, right? So how do you know that this really intense feeling that God has shown you deeply that this is true, that is not just you imagining, that maybe the entire universe around you is made up by your own consciousness, and that everything you really truly feel.
I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Because in order to even attempt to reason otherwise, God would have to exist. Because
why?
You would. I'm going to explain it to you. Okay.
Sorry, go on.
Because the attempt to reason otherwise, like how do you know it's not this? In order to invoke anything at all as actual and intelligible, as an alternative state of affairs, then God would have to exist and be the source of knowledge. Because otherwise, then nothing means anything. Because either everything that is invoked and articulated has God as its ultimate starting and ultimate reference point, that everything originates in the mind of God, it will then be implemented and then secured in the mind and plan of God. Otherwise, then these things that are invoked will not be able to be put on the table as having any intelligibility or meaning, either in themselves or extrinsically in terms of an ultimate starting and reference point. So even the attempt to say otherwise, God would have to exist in order to even attempt to say anything at all intelligible. So God is going to have to exist in either framework.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so then I would say to that, how do you know that line of reasoning that you're applying there isn't being created by your own mind?
You didn't understand what I said.
No, I know that what I'm saying is
Look,
incredibly
listen to me. Listen to me. In order to articulate or advance atheism or any other alternative worldview, God would have to exist, without which you couldn't even utter words that are intelligible. And the reason why is because what these things represent wouldn't have any intelligible ontology whatsoever. Because in order for it to have an ontology, it's going to have to either explain itself, or it's going to have an extrinsic starting and reference point. Either way, in a world without God, you couldn't do that.
Okay.
So I'm trying to explain to you. I'm trying to explain to you that even to attempt to offer an alternative scenario, to talk about, if you said, well, how do you know that the sun and the moon and stars are not an imagination within your consciousness? In order to talk about imagination, in order to talk about imaginary and consciousness, God would have to exist and have to reveal himself in creation as the origin point and reference point for the actuality and intelligibility of anything. Otherwise, imagination and consciousness don't mean anything, because there will be nothing that is identifiable and defensible that instantiates what something is.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
in order to listen, I just explained to you why not.
Well, I could
Okay. Now,
know
okay. Aristotle Providence. Hold on a second. Your mic. Stop. Aristotle. Your microphone quality is really bad. Now, while you're fixing your microphone quality, okay, your microphone quality,
I'm driving.
No, I don't want you to bow. I don't want you to bow out, because I want to use you as an example. This is a guy who is not dealing with a full deck of cards. I've dealt with him many times before. This is a guy who all he is a contrarian. This is how he debates. Okay? And talking with a contrarian is like talking with a
I just
brain
want to know
damaged
why I
registered
can't
Democrat.
have intelligibility.
Yeah, because intelligibility is going to require an absolute reference point. No
Why do you
absolute
think
reference
that's true?
point. Why it's true? Because without an absolute reference point, nothing means anything.
So if I'm a coherentist, why would I be convinced by that argument?
It's not an argument, it's an assertion. And
Okay, either way, I mean,
I will tell you, it's not an argument, it's an assertion. I would say through a reductio ad absurdum. Okay, that the denial of the proposition leads to absurdity. Do you know what a reductio is?
If I'm a coherentist, again, if I'm a
hold on a
coherentist,
second.
I'm going to find
Gray,
that.
hold on a second. I've dealt with you before. I know your shtick. Okay. Okay. Now, hold on a second.
Sorry,
I have in my notes here that I wrote down on November 18th. I wrote down your username and I wrote down troll mute on site. I usually don't go against my notes. Hold on a second. Derek, would you stop?
I'm sorry.
Now, Gray Knight, you were trolling me on the 18th. Are you going to apologize for trolling?
I don't think I was trolling you. I didn't.
Goodbye, Gray Knight. Okay, all right, yeah, okay.
This is what they do.
Okay, yep.
Wait.
No. Look, when people troll me on here, okay, I don't, unless you want to believe that I'm psychotic, I don't write notes to myself that people are trolls because they vigorously oppose what I say. I write down that they're trolls because they are displaying egregious trolling behaviors so that the next time when they show up, I'm going to remember it because I have notes on them. So this little scumbag who knows that he was trolling me 4 days ago, he knows that he was doing this. He's lying to my face, okay? So this is, let me explain it to you. Imagine somebody walks up to you on the sidewalk and they have a noticeable and recognizable face, and it's a dude, and he unzips his pants and he pulls out his schlong and he starts peeing on your leg, right? And then he runs away. And you put in your memory banks, you remember his name. Then 4 days later, you show up at a party and you remember perfectly his face. So unless he had an identical twin who pissed on your leg, you're going to say, are you going to, and he starts talking to you like nothing happened. Say, hey, dude, you just pissed on my leg the other day. You going to apologize for that? And he goes, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I never pissed on your leg. Okay? Look, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm a grown man. When people egregiously troll me, I'm not going to forget, and I'm going to write a note down in their account. I do not write in people's accounts that they're trolls when they just vigorously disagree. There are even people who deploy trollish kind of behavior that I don't write notes on them. But when somebody crosses the threshold of a line that I have where their trolling is so bad that I went, okay, and I write a note in their account, they are unmistakable guilty of trolling me in the past. And this was only a couple of days ago. And this lying piece of garbage knows that he was, and he wants to lie to my face. Maybe he wants to try to save face. So guess what? You lose the privilege of interacting with me when you troll me, and then you lie about trolling me, and you refuse to apologize. So go suck some eggs and go pound sand.
I really like the analogy. It was quite humorous about the pissing on the
Well,
leg.
yeah. Well, this is listen. I don't go into other rooms. I don't heckle people. I don't troll people. I understand that I'm controversial. I understand people don't like me. People don't like that I get indignant with people. That's fine, all that. But if you're going to troll me to such a point that I write a note about you, then you've trolled me, okay?
Yeah,
because
for sure.
otherwise somebody's going to have to say, "Well, Darth, you're just psychotic, Darth. You're just writing crazy notes to yourself."
Yeah, and you speak to a lot of people every day. Of course, you get a lot of trolls. It's understandable.
I get people every single day who troll me light, okay? L-I-T-E.
You're such a fucking
do a
boomer.
light
Shut
version,
the fuck up.
okay? And I just see that's an example. Okay. So the point is, I get this every single day. People from my past, whether it's days, weeks, months, years, they show up, and then they all of a sudden they have amnesia for trolling me when they damn well remember how they troll me. Okay? Well, sorry, it's not going to work that way, right?
Darth, can I ask you? You said a second. You said a minute ago. Like you said, without an absolute reference point. How do you know anything?
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Your microphone quality is not good. Is there something you can do to improve it?
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Is there something you can do to stop sounding like a faggot?
Yeah, you troll before. Yeah, you're muted. Okay. Okay, well, since this is the multiple time that you've trolled Berserk, I'm going to send a notice to Square to have you permanently banned from.
Have you ever trolled anyone?
Is this any better? My mic better?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to have this guy permanently banned from this room.
Just, yeah, I'm gonna shut up.
This is what they do.
You know, I should be more nicer, but sometimes they get you get frustrated with the childish like trolling. Like this is why I don't deal with unbelief. I just can't anymore. I just rather help you understand it. But if you want to troll, like you're just done. Like you're just done. I have no time.
Derek, you probably should just stop talking. It'd be better.
Okay. Yeah, there are some idiots that I talk to on here, and because they don't have the intellectual wherewithal to debate, what they do is to cover up for that, they just engage in what is called contrarianism. And any idiot can do that. Okay? That's what APE at the top does. He's a contrarian.
I think it's reasonable. I think it's good to have a certain level of contrarianism within you, as long as you don't just like consistently argue with everything someone says.
No, I'm talking about the strategy of contrarianism, okay?
Okay, yeah, I think I get you. So anyway, you said something
when people object to certain uncontroversial points, what they will do is, if, like, for example, I'll bring out certain uncontroversial points in order to build on it, and they don't like where it may lead. So rather than Let me continue. They just want to stalemate and stagnate the interaction by taking certain things that are uncontroversial and then all of a sudden make them controversial. Right? Look, I've been doing this for 12 years. I know what these people do. Okay? They're wasting my time. I perfectly know the difference. I perfectly know the difference between somebody who is mature-minded and intelligently is saying, no, Darth, I don't agree with you. Here's why I think you're wrong. I know the difference between that and people that are trolling and being contrarians.
So I was. Could I ask something real quick?
Shut up, Derek.
Go ahead. Go ahead. How do you Starlet? Go ahead, Starlet.
Starlet, yeah. So I was asking something about epistemological nihilism, then someone else interjected something, and you responded to them with something I found quite interesting. You said, without absolute reference, how do you know anything? Was that what you said, or if I?
Yeah, I said if you don't have an absolute reference point either internally or externally, then what is articulated doesn't mean anything. And when I say mean something, here's what I mean. I don't mean that it doesn't mean anything semantically. I'm saying it doesn't possess metaphysical intelligibility. The metaphysical intelligibility will be derived from its nature of being. If its nature of being is unattestable, then it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter what semantic token we affix to it. So, entities or propositions in question are going to have an absolute reference point, either in and of itself or extrinsic to itself. Without either one being the final reference point, both chronologically and contemporarily, then the thing or things in question don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
Here's the problem. If they don't want to accept what I just said, they're going to be screwed due to a reductio ad absurdum. The denial of the proposition leads to absurdity. How do you instantiate the intelligibility of something that has no ontology? How do you do that?
Yeah. So I was gonna say, in regards to that, how do you know how do you know that absolute reference point is real, or if it's not your own consciousness making it up? In the sense of, it could be the fact that that your consciousness is the only thing that exists, and you're making up everything around it.
You're putting on the table as an alternative to the Christian worldview that we can know things by virtue of God's revelatory. No, you're offering a form of solipsism right now. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. That essentially.
Okay, but solipsism. But here I'm trying to explain to you why that's a problem. Because solipsism itself does not have an absolute reference point. Therefore, the invocation of solipsism, the self, the I, the consciousness, doesn't mean anything.
Isn't the point of solipsism that it doesn't have an absolute?
I don't think you're listen carefully. Can something possess intelligibility without there being an underlying actual ontology?
So I'm not sure.
Intelligibility is in virtue of the nature of being of the thing in question. Okay?
Okay.
Intelligibility is in virtue of the nature of being. So in order to have intelligible appropriation of something, we're going to have some apprehension of what the thing is, in part, if not in whole, in terms of its nature of being. If we have no access to or appropriation of what it is in part or whole, there cannot be intelligibility metaphysically. When I say this, people confuse this with semantic appropriation. that is not the same thing. Okay.
Okay.
There could be an entity. There could be an entity outside of our window for which you and I have no idea what it is or what it means. But you and I could both call it the Jablu-Blue. And I said, let's go outside and stand by the Jablu-Blue. Now, we have a semantic appropriation, but there's no metaphysical intelligibility for the Jablu-Blue because we don't know what this thing is in part or in whole. So people object to, I say, there cannot be intelligibility without an absolute reference point internally or externally, because they think that they can have a semantic appropriation as to the Jablu-Blue. Okay? The Jablu-Blue is just a token. Okay? Just like you say pizza or dog. Okay? The fact that we have a shared token referencing something does not entail that there's metaphysical intelligibility. Now, hopefully the token will in some way be communicating certain of its ontological attributes that are rooted in its nature of being or ontology. Okay?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Someone's at the door. 1 second.
Yeah.
That was Osama bin Laden's last words. Someone's at the door.
Osama. Did you hear what they did to his son?
No.
I forget what his son. Does anybody recall what his son's name was?
Fucking no.
I think it was like Usay or something. After they entered the house, they were either on the first or the second floor, and they were on the stairway, right? And I don't remember what his son's name was. Let's just say it was Usay.
His name was Udi Hussein.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
What was it? What was his name?
Udi Hussein. Udi.
Okay. So they whispered, Uday. Okay. They were whispering like they were somebody else that was there to lure him to move down the stair, which he did, and then they put a bullet in him.
Good.
Okay.
Udi Hussein was even more evil than his father, in my opinion.
Well, not that I disagree with you, but where did you get that information from?
From the stories that I've heard of his son. Like, one of his favorite things to do was drive around town and look for weddings just so he could rape the bride.
Oh, you're not okay,
Wait,
sir.
what?
You're making a mistake. Hold on, stop right there. I know the mistake you just made. I think you're referring to Saddam Hussein's sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
that's what I'm
talking
saying.
about Saddam. We're not talking about Saddam Hussein's sons. We're talking about Osama bin Laden's sons.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. That's all right.
No,
okay. No
in that
problem.
case, Osama bin Laden's son wasn't Udi Hussein. It was must have been someone else.
You are right. You are right that guy was pretty bad. But so anyway, so when you say, well, you could be a brain in the bat, you could be in a solipsistic world, even to invoke that is going to require. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay.
So even to attempt an alternative meta world, a metaphysic, God would still have to exist as your ultimate reference point in order for. Okay. Now, people who refuse to accept this will say, "Oh, well, why couldn't there be another absolute reference point other than God?" Well, the point is, you couldn't put anything on the table that was an ultimate reference point unless it was an agent and had the sufficient characteristics to communicate that it was there, that it existed. Okay? You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
So look, Cornelius Van Til was a brilliant Christian philosopher, and he liked to give aphorisms, and he says, atheism presupposes theism. In order to even to attempt to deny God, God would have to exist, okay? In order to even attempt to deploy reasoning about the self, cognition, laws of logic, okay, to make extrapolations, whatever, okay?
Yeah.
And he was right about this. Atheism presupposes theism. Now, if you say that to an atheist, they laugh in your face. They'll say, of course not. Well, the answer is it does. Because then if you reject that, then what you're claiming is that when you articulate atheism, the not God world, you are speaking out of the self or through a process of cognition, and that you are reasoning in some way about your world. But what instantiates the ontology of that thing? What's the ultimate reference point, either in itself or externally, that can provide with that ontology in order to exude reason to say there's no God? Well, the answer is there'll be nothing. So God would have to exist and reveal himself in order for there to be ontological grounds to talk about even the self.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to admit I'm not like philosophically educated enough to know like the difference between when to know like fully when people are talking about like ontology and metaphysics and stuff like that.
Ontology just simply means, listen, ontology simply means the nature of being, either on a small or on a grand scale. So you could talk about the ontology of frogs, or you could talk about the ontology of everything. Okay, that's all it means.
And I get like I vaguely understand metaphysics as in it's that is different to the physical, or that is above the physical, as in like
meta. Yeah, that's correct. Meta just means above.
So okay, so you said a few things. You said solipsism doesn't have an absolute reference point. You said
therefore it doesn't, whatever you invoke with it, whatever you invoke within the solipsistic frame of reference, it doesn't mean anything. Let me give you an example. Suppose you say, well, the only thing that I know is my self-consciousness. Well, then we ask ourselves, what does the self refer to? And what they're going to refer to is a chronology of mental states. Okay, would you agree with that?
I don't know what you mean. I'm really sorry.
Okay, when you talk about yourself, you're thinking of a chronology of mental states.
Hold on, I'm just looking up the word chronology.
Yeah, chronology means successive moments. Okay.
I understand you. Okay, so say it all again.
So when you talk about your self-consciousness, even to talk about your self-consciousness will require a immediate retrospective over a previous consciousness state. So when you talk about the self, you can't help but reflect upon a previous consciousness state. So the self is going to refer to a kind of a succession of mental states. Okay, that is for humans. Okay. So the self is going to refer to a succession of mental states, or a set of mental states that are chronological. Now the question comes in is, what is it that concretely unifies each of these discrete mental states?
Okay.
If God, yeah, that's a rhetorical question. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Now that answer cannot be instantiated unless you're in a God world.
Okay.
Now, in order to understand the absolute bankruptcy and incoherency of the not God, the not Christian God world, we have to juxtapose it conceptually next to the God world. And when I say the God world, I'm talking about the only God that's worthy of being put on the table, and that is the Christian God and his character set. So in the God world, we have God, which is absolute. He's unconditionally non-dependent, non-derivative. He is eternal. He is a mind, and he has the power to, in addition to other attributes, to bring into existence the world. Now, when God created the world, he could have just created one electron. Okay? He could have just created just one concrete thing. But God didn't do that. God created an unimaginable and innumerable number of discrete states or particulars. And he imposed various layers of unity upon all these particulars, so that in our world we have unity and diversity, and from that we have intelligibility or partial intelligibility. Okay? Now, if we're in a world, let's say God creates a world where there's an innumerable number of discrete particulars, but he doesn't impose any correlativeness or connectiveness between them, and then he has human beings. How are you able to make sense of anything? Because there's no unity, there's no category, there's no categoryness. Now, in the not Christian worldview, there are a plurality of things. And in the case of solipsism, we have a plurality of mental states or a chronology of thoughts. Yeah. So people are so accustomed to thinking of their fundamental parameters that they're just a given, but they're not a given. So when you have a set or a chronology of mental states, what joins them together concretely? Not abstractly, but concretely. Because if they're not joined together concretely, then what does the self refer to? So in solipsism, they're referring to a chronology of mental states, but there's nothing identifiable, defensible that actually imposes the unity among the diversity of states or mental states.
Okay.
All right. So this is why in a world without God and see, when I say a world without God, if I don't mention it, I'm still including a world where God is and he reveals his existence. We're not just simply offering God as a mere axiom or a presupposition. We're talking about in order to invoke a world with God, the only way that can be invoked is if and only if God reveals himself to us by some means. Otherwise, there's no God. There's no God to invoke. Okay. All right. So when somebody, like I've had people say to me, "Well, I don't believe in God." I said, "Okay. So what do you believe in?" "Well, there's something absolute there from which everything can. Then I just don't know what it is." Well, if you don't know what it is, then how do you know it's there?
Okay. Is it cool if I go back a little bit, because you said a lot? I get it's fine, but I get lost a bit. Okay, so so you said that off of me saying that when you said that solipsism itself doesn't have an absolute reference point, and then after that you said God has to exist as an absolute reference point. So I get confused there.
You're going to have to have an I'll shut up in a second. You're going to have an absolute reference point.
Okay. So surely the point of solipsism. No, I just want to say that I'm not a solipsist, but I think that it kind of applies here in a sense, like when you're talking about like when you believe in, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound antagonistic, I really don't mean it antagonistically. When you're talking about things
that's fine. I understand. Okay, that's
when
fine.
you're talking about things that don't have like substantial evidence, when I say substantial evidence, I mean stuff that you can point to scientifically. Now, I'm not saying that it has to have substantial evidence. But anyway, when you're talking about that kind of thing, solipsism kind of has some grounds.
Hold
solipsism.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Is your standard that in order for something to be worthy of belief, it must be confirmed by your senses or empirical endeavors?
No. So I would say, I don't want to tangent on this, but I would say that I kind in the way I view reality is I kind of exist in this sort of sense that I'm viewing reality in some way, and the reality that I live in, there are a bunch of other people that also seem to exist.
You're talking about the self. You're talking about the self. Okay, you're starting with the self with having sensory observations, right? Okay, explain to me, is the self the set of subsequent experiences and consciousness?
All I know is that
Sir, answer the question. You see, you're evading the question. When you refer to the self or the I, does the self or the I refer to two or more states of consciousness and sensory experience?
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What do you mean
When
more?
When you're talking about when you're talking about sensory experience, in order to talk about even an episode of sensory experience, you still have to reflect upon that. Okay. So you're having successive thoughts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what unifies any of these discrete thoughts? What makes the unity of the successive thoughts real? What makes it the unity real?
You
see, you just take. All right, let me give you an example. There's an apple on the counter. You walk into the kitchen. There's an apple on the counter, and I say to you, "Hey, starlet," and you turn and you look at me, and then you look back at the apple. Is that the same apple? It's not a trick question.
I would imagine so.
Right. Now, granted, you and I will agree that within this,
I imagine so.
Okay, listen, you and I will agree that in the second that you looked away, there might be some molecular changes or changes that are so minute that they're unknowable and undetectable. But that's not what we're talking about. Does that apple persist from 1 second to the next? When you look at it, look away, and you look back, is there a collection of attributes that mostly stay intact from one time index to another? You would say yes. That's called identity over time. Okay, do you understand that so far?
Sorry, I'm. Okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't know how we got onto it.
Okay, now you believe that there's identity over time. Now, what makes identity over time real? You see, you just take it for granted. I want to know what makes it real.
Well, actually, I would say I don't take it for granted. I would say that I live in reality where it's...
Sir, stop. You don't know what you're talking about. You as a rational human being, every rational human being on this planet takes for granted identity over time, because if you didn't, you'd be insane.
Yes, I agree with
Good.
that.
Now, do you accept, listen, do you accept that God is the absolute, the final, the starting and the only absolute reference point that imposes that there is any unity over time? Do you accept that?
I'm not sure what you mean by like unity over time.
Do you believe that God as creator? Listen to me. Okay, do you understand there's identity and identity over time? Identity is that something equals itself in a time index. The apple is the apple at T1. The apple is the same apple at T5, okay? 5 seconds later. Now, the first issue we have is identity. There must be something that is instituting the identity of the thing in question, and there also must be something that is imposing that there's identity over time. Okay? These are just things that you and I take for granted. Now, is identity and identity over time real?
Okay. So, I don't know if you think this is going to be evading the question.
Sir, this is the problem. The whole time I'm talking with you, I have asked you very circumspect questions that are not trick questions. These are questions that they're almost Socratic in nature, that you have a flight of thinking when I talk to you. These are not trick questions. Now,
no, I understand that.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time. Okay, you simply can't help yourself. You don't know how to focus in the conversation. So we're gonna move on. Okay. Every time I ask you a succinct question in order to build upon it, to instruct you, you either refuse or you have, because you're not habitated to focusing. Okay. Your mind just wanders. Okay. The bottom line is this, that everybody takes certain fundamental parameters for granted without, well, it just is. Well, why is it? Why is there